So I was wondering if do we want to go over the 2023 goals as a refresher and do sort of a keep push hill kind of thing?
This was the blank town manager evaluation. This was I only printed out one copy of the two sides, but you guys all had it on the in the packets. Right? So that's that was 22.
This is 22. Okay.
22, 23. Yeah.
Um, and I remember. Okay.
Are we gonna use this? Or?
If you want to, I mean, I brought them just in case. I bought them last year for this, and then haven't used them since. So we got to bring them back out again.
And Bill, I can't remember if you had just joined when we were doing this process or if it was before.
It was June, so it was after.
It was after. I remember.
Okay. So we had sort of gone through and said like there's the sort of business as usual stuff, and that's sort of the upfront like general management, communication, personnel management, financial management.
I mean, I don't. I gotta hear it. Yep.
So up until I think 5, those are all things that haven't really changed year over year. Okay. But we can go in and we can tweak or change or push those to more specific places if we want. But those have been sort of like carryover of like, this is what is expected administratively of the role. Mm-hmm. And then for professional growth and goals, we had left that fairly general, but we had talked about maybe coming up with more specific personal growth goals in the future. But then after 8, where you see it says priority goals for fiscal 2023, yeah. Those are the ones where we like very specifically went and said like these are the things that we need to have done. So if we want to go through the first 8 or whatever, we can, or we can sort of hold those till the end and talk about the hyper specific, whatever works for the group.
Is this the right one? Or is this?
Yeah, I'm gonna look for
I think we start
that was filled out.
Yeah, you sent one that said completed. Oh, is there? We sent this. I just saved.
which?
Should I use a different one?
There's a blank and there's a filled out one, and I think there's
right. But which one is the filled out that you're going to use as your template?
The copy of blank copy of town manager.
I don't know if it was Matt. That means it's done, and we can.
Well, that was. I sent you one that was filled out. Really? I don't even have one here.
From last year.
Right? Yeah. It's in your email that you sent.
Okay. Interesting. Didn't make it into this folder.
Which one is it?
So the one that we're looking at is the blank copy of blank town manager.
Okay.
So
there it is. So water, right? Is that it starts with water? You know that?
Wait, are you looking at 2022?
No, he's looking at the.
No, you're looking at priority fiscal goals. Okay.
Yeah, he's on the first page. Water. It says the.
Down here.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we want to start with those.
This is town manager evaluation. It says blank. Here, I just scroll down.
I'm gonna print more copies. These are all blank.
Water. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you start at down. Okay. This is where we get into like the specific fiscal 2024 that we'll be going. So these were 2023. But I think what we learned last year is that a lot of them will carry over and then we can add new categories. So for example, for water, there are some things that should be complete, but there's going to be new items for 2024 that we want to add to the list. So the complete pre and post treatment project and the complete or developed strategy for regionalization of water. Where did we end up on those?
So we finished the secondary treatment plant. That's done, and we are involved in a regional effort with the North Shore Water Resiliency Task Force. That will be an ongoing thing for a while, but the state has been generous and put money into that group for studies. We're working.
That's the 200,000.
That was the first one, and they've given them more. So we've got 2 different consultants working on things for that group, and that group includes Hamilton, Ipswich, Wenham, Danvers, Ipswich River Watershed Association. I think Essex and Manchester are loosely part of the group as well, and Beverly Salem Water Board. So it's a pretty good sized group. And
Do you think it's an effective group? Like, is there an
So
appropriate sense of urgency?
well, I think that among the group, there's an appropriate sense of urgency, and the best thing we're able to do is through the senator and the other senators and state reps, because they're all the ones from around this area are all plugged into it. They just keep bringing it to the state, like, we're going to have to solve the water problem for the North Shore, and the state seems to be aware of it. They continue to pass money for us to get a line of funding and come up with solutions, but that's a multi-year process. It's not going to be something that.
But in terms of, and Rosie, I know you're more plugged into this than maybe any of us at IGL. Like, whatever solution we come up with is going to probably involve like intra-city piping and like building of a thing that's going to take 10 years or whatever.
It'll take a long time, yeah.
And so if we're worried that our runway is between 10 and 20, and we need 10 to build something, like, what is there anything we need to do, like, from a milestone perspective to like?
So I'm trying to understand what runway you're asking about, because it is true, particularly during the summer months, that the Ipswich River watershed is overburdened, and that a lot of the effort has been around trying to make sure that there's ample water for that time of year. But that is really the only time of year that we're having trouble with the river.
Yep.
And it's only in years like this year where we're not getting a lot of rain.
But that's
Additionally, the town of Hamilton's allowance to pull from the watershed is never succeeded. We're well below what we're allowed to take from the river.
Okay.
So it's not like the river's gone dry and we can't get water from it. It will impact things like how much development can you do.
Right.
I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, because most people right here don't want a lot of development anyway. So right. We're not necessarily looking to add that much more water. But we want the water source to be resilient. So we're looking at things that will allow us to perhaps take water from the Salem Beverly Water Board, because they're already pulling from the same water source. And if we can all be pulling from one plant, we might be able to reduce the demand and the impact of the river. Also looking at things like creating storage. So in the winter months, when there's plenty of water, in the spring, when the snow starts to melt, they could fill up a new reservoir and hold that water for the region over the course of the summer when it's needed.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different things that they're looking at. Yes, inter-municipality piping is part of it. A reservoir is another part of it.
So that piping,
Topsfield is in it too.
The piping is to connect through Beverly, Salem type of thing.
Beverly, Wenham, yeah.
Wenham.
And the interesting thing was that we weren't even aware, or at least nobody that I knew had been aware of it prior to the first round of grant funding. But Hamilton and Beverly are in the original charter for the Salem Beverly Water District. All it would take is a vote of our board, a vote of their board, and then we'd have to create the connection between the two. But we could join the Salem Beverly Water District now if the Salem Beverly Water Board and the Board of Selectmen voted to do so. We just need them millions of dollars to run the pipe to connect us. But
right.
That is.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it puts us in a good position in that Ipswich, who wants to also be, and it would have to go through a legislative change for Ipswich to join, but we're kind of in the middle of everything. So everything that gets done, you almost need Hamilton to make it work.
Because the Ipswich River watershed isn't a long-term solution. That's always going to be challenging.
Yeah, I mean, and possibility there's also talks behind the scenes, because nobody wants to say it out loud yet, but there's a good chance that the state legislature is going to look to the MWRA and Salem Beverly Water to partner in some way, because Salem Beverly gets most of its water from the Ipswich too. Even though they're in the North Coastal Basin, they get most of their water from sources in the Ipswich River. So
it's sort of like different plugs, same breaker.
Yeah. So there's the goal is to get us somewhere where the water source, it can be multiple water sources or mixed, or maybe MWRA. MWRA might be the most expensive.
But it's probably going to have the longest sustainability.
Yeah.
And that's probably something that 5 towns you said are behind, and it's probably.
Yeah, Topsfield, Danvers, Salem, Beverly. The interesting thing there is Salem Beverly wants the state to give them money to build up their plant and their capacity so that they could then serve us. they want to stay in the water business. Obviously, then they look at the MWRA as a competitor. So there's been a little bit of tension around that. But is it sustainable for them to continue to be in the water business?
So I think water is definitely a goal, and there's a couple parts of it. One is coming up with short-term, long-term sustainable solutions, whether it's, Ipswich River, MWRA, whatever with Beverly Salem. I think Manchester plant was something we've discussed in the past. So there's access to one, but then also our plant and the capacity that can clean it, or does that become obsolete? So if you do that.
Well, so as Kevin said, it's probably going to take 10 years before we can get something else built, and we'll need a plant. We'll need that plant in the meantime. Right now,
I don't know, but I mean,
our plant
does
right
one
now,
replace the other?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been some suggestion that perhaps the Hamilton plant could continue to be some kind of a backup or something for the future. But really, if we're trying to get out of the Ipswich River, the plant at some point probably becomes obsolete. The good news is the plant's in really good shape right now. It's probably making the best water it's made in 10 or 15 years. And it should, if managed properly, should continue to do that for quite some time. So we don't have to make any new investment there, which is good.
Yeah.
I wanted to say a couple of things. We keep doing these water studies and water studies. And although we talk about what the possibilities are, I think as part of goals, we should be very realistic about the taxpayer costs. So, for example, the Salem-Beverly system, to look into that, it's the infrastructure, the pipe infrastructure, but it's, to my knowledge, my information tells me that they would need to build a new water treatment plant to the tune of, at least 2 or 3 years ago, was $50 million. So I think when we talk about these goals, it just seems like a waste of effort to go around and around. And so, maybe we should look at realistic goals. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, the MWRA. The MWRA, their own internal documents. I have the documents from 23, maybe I actually should have brought it with me. But the reality is the MWRA is in a lot of trouble because their infrastructure is very, very outdated. And they can't guarantee that their equipment is going to hold up. And secondarily, they don't have a backup. So how realistic financially and in terms of use is it to think about these things? How realistic is it?
So the whole purpose of the studies is because we know that none of us can solve this problem on our own. And we know that the taxpayers and the water rate payers wouldn't be able to handle the burden of solving the problem financially on their own. So the only way to do this is to get the state and probably the federal government involved and interested in it. And so the studies are to show them what needs to be done and what the anticipated cost is so that they can start to get behind some kind of a financing mechanism. The legislature this year, it's in a bond bill, but in the environmental bond bill did put a substantial sum of money into the bond bill for North Shore water and water sustainability goals. Now, that might not all come to the North Shore Task Force. Some of it might go to Salem-Beverly, some of it might be invested in MWRA, but they recognize that the MWRA, Salem-Beverly have their own problems. They know certainly the small water producers like us and Ipswich and Topsfield can't keep doing what we're doing. And they know that PFAS is an issue for all those except for us because we now can remove PFAS from our water. So the short-term news is for Hamilton. For the short term, we have enough water for now. We have a plant that takes care of our needs. And as current testing shows, we are removing down to the discernible level, any PFAS that's in the water. So we're doing okay there. But long term, we have to be partnered with somebody because Hamilton's not going to solve its water problem on its own.
And there's no argument about that, but I would like to see us spend all this study money that keeps getting thrown at us on something that's workable, right? I mean, where are taxpayers going to come up with $50 million, whether it's local taxpayers or state taxpayers? So I'm just thinking creative.
Yeah.
Think about creative solutions, right? And I don't know what they are, but it seems like we're getting pushed to do all this high density development, and we keep saying we don't have the water, we don't have the water. Well, we know we don't have the water. So what are we going to do to protect ourselves, to protect our residents here? So those are just things that I think should be part of the water goal.
So I think if we divide it into two categories, the first is long-term access and sustainability. And I think we're saying to represent the interest and urgency of Hamilton Wenham. And I think sort of part of that is what Rosie's talking about is like, what are the short-term milestones that are exceed the bounds of conversation, right? And then I think the second thing is maybe pushing a little harder on the Salem Beverly Water Board and or MWRA, and maybe have some sort of opinion that we can socialize around which direction we think, you know, is worth going in or not, right? If we say by the time we get in Salem Beverly Water Board, we've just put the plug in a new space, but actually it's MWRA, I think we should kind of have a opinion on that, because then I think that helps what you're saying is like, stop putting money towards like pontificating about joining the Salem Water Board if that's only a short-term solution. And then I think the second part of water is this plants, pipes, and PFAS. Oh, nice that it's alliteration, which is, are there any things within fiscal 2024 that we need to have as milestones for either maintenance or upgrade of plants? I know the pipe stuff is a whole beast of its own. Are there anything that we need to be keeping an eye on?
So let me circle back to Tim, and I'll come back to you with an answer for that when we're talking about these goals in public. But the plant, I think, is in good shape. PFAS issue, I think, is well in hand because of the secondary treatment facility that's been added to the plant. There may be some need for more investment in pipes, but we're trying to pay attention to the end user and the ratepayer. And, you know, we've already bonded a lot of money for that plant, and we've got several years to pay it off. We're trying now to do smaller pipe projects based on what we have. And once we have enough in retained earnings, we'd rather pay for it with money we have on hand than continue to bond, because that'll just add to so I know that there's additional pipe work we need to get done. I don't think Tim was planning anything for FY24 or maybe even 25. He's trying to let the retained earnings build up so that he can feel comfortable and say, hey, we've got, you know, our free cash policy and retained earnings calls for us to have 20% of operating and retained earnings for the budget. But anything over that, we can invest in infrastructure and in capital improvements. So I think he wants to get to a place where he's got $400,000 or $500,000 more than what's required to be able to say, I can do a $500,000 water pipe project, and these are the streets that are the next highest priority list. But I will find out what his time. My understanding last time I spoke to him was that we didn't have anything coming up this current year or into next. So
it sounds like what you're saying, status quo, but then we also just need to confirm that Tim has an eye on a long-term fiscal plan for how we do that.
Right. So we're talking capacity, quality, and infrastructure, which is underlying. And can we make a statement, you know, to the community that says, you know, we can live with a 45-day ban every year with our current, you know, households and consumption rates, that we are sustainable for 5 years, or we even have the ability to grow by 5%, you know, because everyone's thinking 3A, everyone's thinking housing development. You know, is there a statement we can make that, you know, in the 5-year window, you know, it's status quo? You know, but in the meantime, we know we're going to outgrow this, and you know, we've got 3 or 4 options at WRA. You know, publicly.
So would that be, if we wanted to like put, like, are we basically saying that we would like Joe to plan to put some sort of State of the Union about water in the Q4 water bill?
I mean, is that dangerous to do though?
Or Q1? I mean, I think it depends on the depth of the information. I think if you wanted to say like, you know, we hear your concerns around cost and capacity and access and resources, and we wanted to like, you know, let everybody know that there's options on the table that are being explored. We feel like as long as we continue to adhere to the water bans, you know, summer months are really hard on the Ipswich River Water Basin, but throughout the year we have this, we're looking at other opportunities. You know, you can find more information by standing in the lawn at Patton and waving your arms wildly.
You know, I think there's a lot of stress in this community. There's just so much proposed change, and we hear about water as one aspect of that. And it just causes so much distress because people are saying, oh, we should go with the Salem Beverly, we should go with the MWRA. I like that idea to put something into the water bill so that people understand that these are very costly alternatives, and we as a community need to think about that because people feel like things are imposed upon them, right? Go to town meeting, it's yes, 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 and then people are absolutely shocked with the prices. So when taxes come around, so I think it would be good to be very. I think part of the goal would be very realistic with communication. And so that people don't think, oh my God, we're going to do this. It's going to cost all this money, blah, blah, blah. But we have to because we have to develop. And that seems incongruous. So something like that would, I think, enhance a sense of trust with the citizens of our town. I think that's really important.
Yeah, we did a water report my second year here.
I remember that, the Dewberry report.
Yeah, we did that report on summer 2019, maybe.
And they talked about a 3% growth, that we can handle a 3% growth.
Oh, so someone, okay.
And we're still working with Pete, the engineer in Dewberry. He's actually been picked up of the 3 studies that are being done for the North Shore Task Force. Yeah. Dewberry and Peter are doing 2. Yeah. So he's very familiar with us and the surrounding areas issues and
so maybe we replicate that report.
Yeah. Well, that's my point. We keep throwing in all this new money into reports when I can rattle off a lot of things that they've already done. So,
but I also think it's probably one of our top 2 expenses going forward as a community. And I don't want to lie to people either, that to say, oh, 45 days of summer, that's all it costs, and we can just keep moving, because I think we're going to hit an end point. Whether we need to start thinking about that, reserving for that, or planning for that, it's going to happen to a lot of small towns, I think, too. That's why I think the state's really trying to pull in and do more regional stuff and leverage some of the bigger communities like Beverly, Salem. So, I mean, we could say no, and but isn't that going to ultimately, we're going to need to go there?
Well, somebody's going to need to lead that charge. Like from my perspective, having worked in an MWRA community and living in a community that is served both by the Lynn Water Sewer Commission and the MWRA, we get our water from MWRA, but we get our water from Lynn Water Sewer, but we send our wastewater to the MWRA treatment plant. It's crazy, so it's Swampscott. So, but ultimately, the MWRA is probably the only long-term sustainable way to do it. So the question is, how do you get MWRA and Salem Beverly to partner? Because right now they're being very guarded and suspicious of each other. MWRA is being looked at as the 800-pound gorilla that wants to just come in on the North Shore and push Beverly Salem out of the way. And Beverly Salem is saying, well, we've been doing this for a long time. We can continue to do this. But they need $50 million worth of plant upgrades. So where are you going to invest your $50 million? In the Salem Beverly that still is going to be taking out of the same, drinking out of the same bottle that we're drinking out of, or we want to drink out of a different bottle?
Right, but the reality is MWRA has obsolete infrastructure as well, and they don't have a backup. So I think as we tout these things, we need to let people know that the reality is that there's no ideal solution. And it's a work in progress. And the other part of that is the cost of water on an ongoing basis. End users, as time goes on, I mean, it's very expensive to have regionalized water, and you have no control over what the rates are. So, and I'm not saying not to, I'm just saying to put out more accurate information so that there's trust built and people have the ability to understand exactly what's going on. And you don't need a 300-page Dewberry report, but sort of a concise and realistic plan for each of them and potential outcomes.
Okay, so in the interest of time, I think we have long-term accessibility, access and stability. We have the plant pipes, capacity stuff. Then we have the communication around water, which is this sort of filigrana way to put it in there.
I'm sorry, can I just have one more little thing? In terms of, you brought up at our last meeting that Tim allows particular things when there's a water restriction, i.e. Developing a new lawn. I mean, I wonder if we could look at the restrictions. But that seems a little kind of kooky because if you had your lawn put in April and the drought started as it usually does, what, June or July? Why does somebody who's putting in a lawn right now have priority to be able to use sprinklers? Because nobody puts in a lawn in the summer. And if they do, well, what's your problem? Have the landscaper come back in the fall. And I know that that's been an ongoing thing, and it's always struck me as a kind of bizarre use of water. So
I
that's
mean,
what I wanted to say.
another idea would, I should say, we already have a kind of a little bit of a difficult to understand water rate structure, right? Because we have the tiered rate structure. But we could also look at peak season pricing, where to get people to voluntarily watch their water use, you raise the price in the summertime when the water is most at risk. If you're going to water your lawn, you're going to pay a premium for it because it's going to be a lot of money. Now the problem with that is there are people that will just pay that premium, but it will deter other people, some people at least.
There's something to consider.
And maybe add rate structure too there because refamiliarize myself with the tiered structure, but the rate structure is interesting to me.
We did just do a tiered rate structure, right?
Yeah,
That's the
We've
last.
had a tiered rate structure for a long time. We made
And we
a mild
increased
adjustment to
it.
one, of the tiers, I think, and then you made a smaller adjustment to the connection fee. That was about it.
So instead of finding somebody, make them pay up front. But I don't know. I mean, it's something maybe to come back and look at.
It's an interesting idea.
But then you'll have everyone do it, right? Because they'll pay a premium.
I think some people would. I don't think everybody will. I think some people would. Some people wouldn't.
Shut off that water.
I mean, have y'all seen my lawn? It is crispy and brown.
Oh, yeah. And that's the way it should be.
And my hydrangeas are dead.
They were beautiful though.
There was a brief,
Yeah.
it was a brief moment.
Beautiful.
But of course, my friends over on Settlers, their lawns are green and their flowers are blooming and their pools are very full.
Now my pool does evaporate. I have to throw the hose in, but few times.
Okay.
I burnt a pump once already because I didn't.
I think I'm gonna grab another slice piece while we do this, but I would like to understand
That's a big one. I think so. The more we can tier and layer that down and really talk about even things that are measurable and accountable to come back on, the SMART goal type of things, especially if we're coming back a year from now, right? And looking at you and extending one, let's say, hey, we talked about this in July and wow. So you maybe sitting with Tim, does even some more specific milestones or layered approaches of things you can work on that touch upon everything we just talked about. Because I do think the answer is, we can do status quo. How do we do that? Giving some type of confidence to the community that, if we can keep the rates the same grade but we have to give a little bit as a community and, 45 days a year, we're not using our sprinkler or something or whatever it is, but I do think that we're going to outgrow that. And I think we shouldn't wait until we're forced to plug somewhere. Maybe we won't. I don't know. But.
So I will say that the other thing is that for the people in the community who don't want to see the town develop or grow much at all, our water problem is one of the things that's really going to make them happy, because as long as we have a problem with water, we are going to have trouble attracting development. Right. We are going to have trouble actually getting that stuff done. So it's
not stopping it so far.
I mean,
I don't think. What has our growth been since that 3% in Dewberry?
I looked up the building permits, and it was pretty substantially
for new construction.
Not new construction.
The building permits.
Yeah, but a lot of those in Hamilton are for renovations. So people put additions on their houses or do new kitchens and bathrooms. They build building permits for all that stuff. Our building permits are not mostly for new growth or for new construction. We have, you have the lots on Bridge Street would have been a bane to all of our existence. But since Canterbrook opened and Willow Flats opened, that's been it. You got the little bit that's going on over on Asbury Street for the Habitat for Humanity, and eventually you're going to get Andrew the Friends to come in and build his 40-something units over on Asbury Street. That's all we've got in the pipeline right now for new construction. You might see one or two houses, and then once in a while, Tim Ford built 2 houses over here on Bay Road. Tom Ford, two years ago. And they were doing it together though. I think Tim took over at the end. Tom got it all started and through, but Tim wanted to finish the construction. But they were, you know, you see that come, you know, 1 or 2 on buildable lots, and then that's about it. We don't get a lot of new construction.
You're right. I was wondering, geez.
So that's not new demand. So that's not new demand.
Oh, okay.
So
Is sewage or septic ever part of the discussion we need to have? Are we ever gonna need to tie into something there, or?
Well, if you want us to tie into sewage, I mean, that's gonna be even more expensive.
So we're sustainable as is with septic and.
Again, what is your end goal? If you want more development, no, then we'd have to find a larger, you know, septic solution, you know, a small treatment plant or something like Ipswich has a small portion of their downtown sewer.
Right.
Most people on a septic. You need some other solution to be able to do, you know, real big building. I mean, I haven't said at a meeting because the people who don't want to believe me will just yell at me, and I don't want to get yelled at. But the fact of the matter is the fact that we have septic and the fact that we have if we have no sewer, means that even if you pass 3A, nothing would get done downtown until there was a sewer plant. There's just no way to do it.
Well, could the state at any point, since they would have the district, say would require us to have it?
So you're talking about $50 million to do a water treatment plant for Salem Beverly. You're talking probably $150 million to do anything from the MWA, and that's for water. Water treatment on the other end, wastewater treatment on the other end is going to be way more expensive than that.
Yeah.
It was over $3 million to do, my understanding, and I only briefly scanned it. Michael Lombardo, when he was here, had a small study done to determine the rough cost to do a treatment plant, a wastewater treatment plant for the town center, for the downtown area. And it was going to be, it was several $1 million. And we know that all water and street projects have tripled in cost since then. So if it was 14 million then, you're $40 million now.
But that's the one place, if we had to.
It's one place you'd have to try and find. Why would the state give us $40 million?
Because they're gonna make us put 700 units down there.
And then the 3A doesn't require all 700 units to be in the downtown. There's only 20% of it. It's like 147 units would have to be manageable within the downtown.
Only 147 units?
Well, compared
I'm
to
just saying, like,
43.
and I think we have to really watch Wenham because they're proposing 300 of their units go 150 yards from the train station,
and then
which is practically Hamilton.
And they want that. They want the access to that to be on Hamilton Street. Paper Street off of, they want it to go down they want to, well, I already told Steve, Steve that if he passes it that way, I'm suing him, so.
Well, that's, I was like, guys, this is why, and I recognize that our planning board is trying to like politically not look like they're, but I was like, we're in trouble if they vote this in. And then you have, well, the problem is the way that they've positioned it is like kind of that, like, well, we're going to do it here. We're going to get a check mark, but nobody will actually build. And it's like, guys, but if they do, you didn't fuck over Wenham, you fucked over Hamilton.
And the reality is, when I think about that little 0.93 acres at Max Shoe, you could only put 1 or 2 units there. They do self-contained wastewater disposal system. So I don't want anybody to say to me, because they don't have 1 square inch of green space on that acre. But the reality is, nobody better say to me, oh, it'll never happen because there aren't wastewater disposal systems. Yes, there are, and they're getting better and better. So I don't think we should claim that even if we pass 3A, they'll never be able to build. I don't buy it.
That's not really what I was trying to say. I was just trying to say that it is an impediment. It's a kind of rather large impediment at this point. And I think honestly, and the treatment plant for 18 units versus a treatment plant for 40 units are 2 dramatically different things. One is somewhat
has put in $4 billion. She can't wait to get shovels in the ground in places like Hamilton and Ipswich on these lovely little bucolic towns. They are prime fodder. So, I mean, that's another issue.
I mean, I think we don't know. I think October is going to tell us a lot. I think the Supreme Court decision is going to have a lot. But I also think, like, we know that you can have multifamily housing by special permit here in Hamilton right now. You can buy any house in the downtown district and you can turn it into multiple units.
But doesn't mean
the current, yeah. And we've had 1 permit pulled, and it's the Willow Flats. So we know that we have a very low amount of interest, you know, in building these types of things here. But that doesn't mean they won't happen. And we don't know what the future holds, but
I think right now that your biggest advantage is that it just doesn't pencil out right now because the cost to buy land in Hamilton is high. The available water and then the cost to do a septic treatment plant just raises all the costs up. And I have friends that work at Redgate and other companies, and they looked at buying the dorms, the student housing from Gordon Conwell. It just doesn't work for our group. It doesn't work. We can't do it.
I mean, Alex and Vince said they were like, if the building wasn't already there,
yeah,
no one could make money building something like this here.
Right.
Like the math doesn't math. So anyway, I do want to keep time check. So I think the second topic is the cell tower. And I think the one thing I'll say about this is the amount of people who like to say, well, like, when are you guys going to get that cell tower? The cell tower is up and on. If you don't have better service, it's the carriers, not the tower, correct?
It's also the location.
I think
it's very low in terms of signal.
Yeah, but you're not going to get someone else bringing in another cell tower anyway. I think maybe we shift this in some type of, improved downtown communication, whether it's fixed wireless like HTC is looking into now. There are other solutions that can expand out and cover, all through 1A and stuff right now. Maybe there's little things on your street poles, on the telephone poles. A lot of communities are doing that now instead of putting up.
So we're saying cell tower alternatives for broader coverage.
Cell tower.
Because I agree, like
it is ironic because the only place that's really dead at this town is downtown. I have a signal on my T-Mobile phone. Like
I have great service with T-Mobile.
I have Metro by T-Mobile, but I can go anywhere in this town. And I just look at my phone and I've got enough bars I can make a call. I can get a call.
You have Metro. I built that network.
I did. I the worst decision I ever made when I was super poor, like 15 years ago. I switched to Sprint because it was like $50 a month, and then Sprint kept getting bought by all these other carriers. And now everyone's like, oh, I can't get service. I was like, I'm on T-Mobile and I have service everywhere.
I heard that they have really good local service.
I had the same issue as you with cost with Sprint. My bill just kept going up and up, and we finally just gave up, and I went to Metro by T-Mobile 3 years ago. I love it.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
So I think it's more, and downtown is the problem area. You could have something where people come in and all of a sudden, either it's fixed wireless or Wi-Fi or it's cellular, and it says, hey, welcome to Hamilton. You could sign on, you could sell it to the Crosbys, and they could, pulse it into their, shops and stores. And there's all sorts of, we could make money off of it.
I think we ought to put him on your committee.
Well, I've been meeting with HTC on it. I brought in, somebody from the industry.
But are we basically saying like table the third site, table the increased carrier, and really do a pivot? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm just saying, solution the communications deficit in downtown.
Yeah.
Whether it's an alternative solution.
It just gets worse.
But I will tell you though, without the school there,
the worst part
Everest did tell me that we think about it.
No service in Buford, and they had a whole thing about like it's for any sort of
they have the communication.
But they were saying like parents who were trying to get a hold, you can't.
Well, in the emergency, so networks are shut down now, having lived through one of those, and that's general.
Well, maybe we change it to connectivity or communications goal, and we talk about, maintain and grow existing cell tower, expand coverage capabilities through next gen.
Next gen. Listen to
next gen solutions.
Okay, we've just lit Bill on fire. Okay, cool.
I love that. Look at him. Yeah.
But we can fill this one up. Did you get Dish on there yet? Did they start paying more money?
I haven't.
I know they're on there.
Yes, I don't know the company. I haven't looked at what we're getting in our check yet.
Okay, well, I'm not going to dwell here because.
So maximize revenue growth on existing tower and expand geographical
coverage with alternatives.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Town hall. Basically this transitions to figure out how we're going to pay for the deficit in the current town hall situation and take that project to completion.
Because I thought this one was done. I really did. I thought we were over the finish line.
No, but
so short, funding solution and then kind of management and oversight of.
Well, so we're gonna have, so
Jay
we,
Butler came to the rescue, didn't he?
well, they have to meet, so you'll know, we have, we met with the FinCom last week, Capcom joined them, so it was a joint meeting, Jay Butler was on, but not his whole committee. Wendy updated the memo that based on the feedback that we got from you at the meeting in July, she updated the memo and offered 4 different alternatives. All of them rely on a mix of ARPA, free cash, and a different level of borrowing. And the borrowing can either be through the general fund or through the CPC, depending on what the CPC wants to do and what FinCom recommends. So we've got 4 different options. They're looking at them. They haven't voiced an opinion yet, but when we meet on, you and I have to talk about the agenda from Monday, but when we meet on the 5th, next Monday, we'll ask you to pick the date for the special time meeting, open the warrant, talk about the 2 or 3 questions that we have, three questions, I think, that we have in front of you. They'll get refined once, through the process like they always do, but at least we'll know these are the 3 articles to discuss, and then close the warrant. And you'll have a 3 agenda warrant. It'll be short, and nothing else will be in it. So I did double check with town council. There's no requirement to leave a warrant open for a certain period of time, particularly for a special. So you can open and close the warrant the same night. And he actually recommended it. Because if you're really trying to control and keep it to be a short 1 item meeting, then you should open and close on the same night.
Was there any?
Is there a risk of no quorum? Sorry.
Yeah.
There's always a risk of no quorum.
75, what is it?
I think it's 75, yeah.
Did the Capcom and the FinCom have any comments about different funding sources?
They talked about all of them. I think this general sense from Capcom didn't really talk about funding sources. They're just more interested in what the overages caused by and how the project's going to get managed. Which is, that stuff hasn't changed. I kept trying to tell them the only thing that's changed here, unfortunately, is the price. Everything else is the same project. FinCom, obviously always wants to have as much, information out in the public as possible.
Mm-hmm.
John was getting into the, we have to, be honest and tell everybody that the cost of the project is really all in is going to be $11 million when you consider the cost of borrowing. And I'm like, okay, but all you're doing, and we're saying that, is telling people not to vote for it, because it's not, you're borrowing about, everybody knows if you get a mortgage, you get a car loan, you're paying interest.
So, you don't discuss it because it's too traumatic.
Yeah, you don't go, okay, I agreed to pay $40,000 for this car, but by the time I pay it off, it's actually going to cost me $62,000. Nobody ever does that. But John wants us to have that conversation. Okay.
So, what is the amount that is in question after the ARPA and the free cash? Was it 800,000?
So there are a couple. I don't have the memo with me. There's a couple different. She structured it based on to give you guys some flexibility and with the FinCom's input and Capcom's input. So one of the questions came up. Well, if you use all of the free cash, are there any other projects that need to get done that we won't be able to do because we're doing that? And so so it's going to be up to you as the select board to determine what level of borrowing will be, whether that's, and that's up to whether or not CPC says that they want to do it or if you want to do it. So we've got the numbers on what it would cost to do 700,000, 800,000, 1 million, 1.5, so a different range of borrowing. And then each of those allows or doesn't allow a certain amount of additional projects to happen if
So if I remember correctly, to keep our free cash at the 5%,
we didn't go below that. Yeah.
we didn't go below that. We would still, and using the ARPA money, we still, I maybe a month.
We still don't need about 7 or 8. Yeah, it was about 800,000.
And then Jay Butler, and then you don't have to risk town meeting saying no. We want a new school. Blah blah blah. That's just my fear. And blah blah. We don't need to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a risk of town meeting saying no, even on a borrowing, even if it's a CPC borrowing, it's still borrowing. It's still part of the town's borrowing, and it still impacts our credit rating, right? But
but the reality is we already pay 2%,
right.
And what it, and I think that's an important thing to bring up.
Yeah.
And this is what's one of the main purposes of CPC funding. So since we already have this extracted from us, well, maybe we won't use that term. But since we already pay that, it won't be any more of a burden. Anyhow, okay, I'm sorry.
I think I don't know if you need to go into everything John's saying, but I should say, hey, initially we approved whatever it was, 5.4 million based on these estimates, not even get into that. It was 30% over, it was a couple million, if I remember right, and then here's our solution to do it, and just go from there. But
My overriding message is that based on our options that we're presenting to you and the FinCom, and then later to the town meeting, none of them would require a tax increase. We'll live within our means, whether we do it with CPCR or out the general fund. We aren't increasing anymore.
And that's important. I think you have a much better chance of passing something when you just take the pressure off.
All right, so that's definitely on Monday's agenda. Then we'll go through that.
It's on the draft that Caroline and Tom haven't,
But so that's a goal though too. So it's like identifying sources of funds to complete, and then it's really the management of construction, right? Overseeing.
Yeah.
Because how long do we think it'll take once it's
18 to 24 months? I mean, the good news is even this delay in identifying the financing, the low bidder has agreed to hold his bid until we get through the town meeting. And he was not planning to start before late fall anyway, so we don't really throw him off his schedule too much.
You've heard that holding the bid before. Hopefully this time it will go.
Excuse me, he was a lot lower than the other three, right? So that's a little nervous in my opinion. But
I think part of it though was that he was a mid bidder the first time. And so he was able to compare the scope. And I think he actually had more of a moral responsibility to the differential scope than anybody else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
Because Tim was saying that he had gone through both scopes with him. And I think had he have come back in the range of the other folks, there would have been more oversight on our behalf to be like, you bid this on the first scope and now this on the second, like where it's a smaller scope. But
and how was just on that topic, town hall and that, like morale, everybody's happy in their kind of temp seats, or they're
I mean, so everybody pretty good. I mean, not every single person. Peggy just likes to have something to complain about. I love her dearly. I really do. But that's her. She likes to have something to complain about. I'm like, that's fine. It doesn't make us
any other
friends or
anything.
No,
people need to do to kind of maintain that 18-month window.
I think they're hoping that we get the money, especially at the meeting. But
because what is the plan if we don't?
I have to come up with that.
you can all just come sit on my porch. I have an outlet out there.
Nice.
And I think the Wi-Fi goes at least to the end of the sidewalk. So
really
you're welcome.
Or you can go to her.
Oh, right. We can just go to New Hampshire.
Bathroom list, electricity.
Yeah.
No, we will have electricity, and we do have that. And there's plenty of room for campers.
Is it a composting tool?
Bring your own sawdust.
I'm very into these composting.
I know, but you know what? They have a lot of things.
I know.
There's a lot of maintenance or a lot of smell.
Right. All true statements.
Well, it won't get used that much, and people up there, it's still legal to have an outhouse up there, and believe me, I have 25 different opinions as to how to keep things sterile and clean. And I also have an idea for pump sink.
Communication snacks, right?
Crazy. All these things you can do.
I love it though. I've always talked about I think I can't wait for when we actually do hit rock bottom as a society, and we kind of do what Cuba did, right? Where you have no option but to just take care of the things you have and live minimalist. I start to look forward to that. Like
my $14 transistor radio from Walmart.
Yeah.
It's what else do you need? I don't need a $3,000 stereo system. It just amazes you how little you
But I want to take Tupperware to 15 Walnut, and I want them to put my sandwich in it and hand it back to me. I don't want all this styrofoam and plastic and bags and utensils.
That's a good idea.
But I need there to be, the problem is because of single use legislation and people don't want food I'm oh, for heaven's sake, we've made it impossible for me to just be please don't put all that styrofoam there. I will come with a plate and you can put it on there.
I would probably love that.
No, because they'd be well, if there's anything wrong with the food, you can sue us and say that something happened because it wasn't an open container. And I'm I don't need 7 plastic containers to go 150 yards.
Yeah. But you can always reuse it going to work or something.
Oh, which I do.
Reuse
I have so many leftover Indian containers, and then I make no chicken stock, and then I just hand out plastic containers of chicken stock.
I love it when the black bottom. And
yeah.
I use those.
You can get a year out of those for sure. Yeah.
Salads go in them.
Your under sink cupboards are like jam packed with them.
Those are the only like infomercials that I actually identify with when it's like, is this you? And it's like people like pulling Tupperware out, trying to find the lids. And I'm like, yes,
everybody.
that is me. Okay, so town hall, great. The next thing that we had talked about, and I do want to say, I think we have done like exponentially better on communication. There does still seem to be a listening problem. And I don't think that we can always overcome the listening problem. And I think there's still a lot of opportunities in communication, but we are putting out a lot more information than we used to put out. Now, is it being received? I can't say that it is or isn't, but I at least now when somebody says, I didn't see this, I can say, well, it was here, it was here, it was here, it was here.
We're trying to get better. We'll continue to try to improve. We can't, I go back to the, 7th grade science lesson, right? Where in order for there to be sound, there has to be a transmitter, a receiver, and a medium. And we're the transmitter, and we have multiple mediums, and I just can't guarantee that there's a receiver.
Right.
We do our best. We put it out visually on the website. We put it out on social media. We put it out virtually through Code Red calls. I had one negative response to me reminding people about the visioning session last week. Everybody else was like, great, thanks for letting us know.
Was that well attended or?
There was over 70 people in the room.
Yeah, no, I think
for the middle of July and a planning visioning session. Yeah, I thought it was all that.
So maybe we just got to talk a little more like during our meetings about, are there any analytics on our communications? How many read things?
Yeah, I can get stuff from
even our website. If people click around in there, yeah. Do they find it easy? Do they get what they need?
So when I first got here, we used to get some complaints about the website. It was hard to use, clunky, blah blah blah. We did an update a year and a half ago, and we don't really get those complaints that much anymore. I think it's gotten better.
You can pretty much go to events and get everything you need. I think it's much more user friendly. So my compliment.
So how do we I think we have the right tools then. We got to get people to listen. Maybe that's just, but how do we then focus messages? What messages do we want to make sure we communicate frequently, and are clear about? Is it 3A? Do we want to make sure we have a goal of communicating?
And when's our person starting? Aren't we getting a person?
So yeah, I mean, I need to touch about that. So yes, we have
about 10 positions open.
I got a lot of positions over there. I'm looking at a slight restructure, but within or less than what I had originally projected to spend in this year.
This is the reallocation of
Lori. So with Patrick leaving, and we're hiring a new planning director, and we have a part-time conservation agent we share with another town.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that's come up is that there's a need for some additional clerical help to support those two roles, right? And I was looking at a part-time grants and communications person to add into my office. I think what I'm going to do is what I've actually already had Michelle do is like reorganize the job descriptions for the person who will be taking over for Lori that we're out trying to find right now. That person will come in and do some grants management and communications and be in my office. And then some of the stuff that Lori was doing as far as assisting with the HDC, or not the HDC, but the Hamilton Historic District Commission or the Affordable Housing Trust will get moved over to a 24-hour a week part-time clerical position that will support planning and conservation and have some role in helping those other smaller boards get their meetings done. So it actually might cost us a little less, but we're going to assume it's going to cost us around the same. And it's just reshuffling the responsibilities. Same number of positions, just reshuffling responsibilities because I got an opening and I was hiring a new person, so it was the right time to look at. If you remember, when I hired Pat, that was what Pat was going to do. And then he left and Lori came in, didn't have the same skill set. So we wind up triaging it and taking advantage of Lori's strengths instead. So now I can shift back to what we were originally.
So Lori's leaving. I'm sorry, I'm a little behind the eight ball.
Oh, yeah. I've learned this as well.
I thought we told everybody.
Yeah, he did. Well, I know.
Lori.
I found out in a side conversation.
Lori is going to be a grandmother for third time in December, and she has decided she wants to be. She decided she wants to be a full-time grandmother. So
nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. And so I'm very happy for her. I'm very sad.
Yeah, I told her that.
She was I've had her in my office longer than anybody else. Nobody else lasted more than a year. I was like, you're killing me. Michelle's still with us. She's just not in that role anymore. So So with Lori's departure, I was just getting ready to advertise the grants and communications person, and I said, wait a minute. I know that there's a need in planning and conservation. I can maybe solve two problems here with one hire. Well, one hire and a replacing. So we reorganized some of those job descriptions, and that's what we're going to try to do. So
I think
they're both advertised right now.
Yeah, the planning board will be very happy to have a little more help.
Yeah, and so will the Conservation Commission. They'll be happy that there'll be somebody there to help Kristen a little bit. Kristen's done a good job. She got off to a rocky start. There was no doubt trying to serve two masters was a little bit difficult, and we knew there was going to be bumps in the road. But she's straightened out and steadied things now, so it's been better.
Yeah.
So should we have a goal on? You get a lot of open positions. Should we have a goal about it, whether it's managing, employees through transition, which is different locations plus attrition and getting people up to speed? Is that something we?
I mean, that's kind of a regular requirement of the job.
I think that falls into
when people leave, it's my job to find their replacement. And I always, whenever somebody leaves, I look at it and say, okay, do we have to do the same thing, or is there something else we could do that might serve us better? That's kind of how I go.
Yeah, I mean that usually is a goal for people, for leaders, right? Managing a team, or inspiring them and growing them. Yeah.
So under personnel management, if you look in that section, if there's anything you want to add to that relative to this circumstance,
no, I think
next year.
I mean, it is. Is it in here, the one I'm on?
Yeah, exercise leadership that promotes a positive, effective, productive work environment, instructs staff on town policies and properly supports the implementation, provides leadership in negotiating collective bargaining agreements with employees, develop departmental objectives and relates them to the town manager's goals as established by the select board, develops and maintains a system for senior staff performance evaluations and merit pay, properly manages staff, sets goals, gives good direction, has continuous follow through, as well as promotes training, personal improvement goals for all employees with the result of attracting and maintaining effective employees. Good luck out there.
Yeah.
I actually feel like I've been doing all right with it.
It's just, this will probably be the most open position you'll ever have.
Yeah, and
it's a lot.
We knew Patrick was retiring, so that wasn't a surprise. We one position we were hiring. The one thing that's been killing us, and Rosie, if you know any nurses out there that want to get into public health nursing, we have a regional public health nurse position we have not been able to get a good candidate for.
I thought
it's crazy.
Who was
Rachel?
doing that? Rachel, was Rachel doing it?
Rachel left almost a year ago.
No.
Yeah, she went back to be a school nurse so she could be home more often with her kids.
Missed that.
And I've been trying to fill it since she left.
And everything.
How many hours is the position?
40 hours a week. It's a well-paid position.
What is it?
I have to double check it for you because
40 hours, that's too many for me.
It's 40 hours with full benefits. Because we did hire a shared service coordinator for that regional public health thing, all in the state's time. We're not paying any of it. Paul is looking at reworking the job description, trying to get a better candidate. So we were in the 90s though for full, which a lot of nurses will say is low because nurses can make a lot more than 90. So that's low, but
I think if you put it at 25, you could get somebody for 90, 24 hours.
Yep.
And then you could get the moms around here who are nurses who have kids in school.
Yeah, but you need to be public health specialists. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
By the way, I just bumped into, when I went to pick up the pizza, I bumped into Chris Lee. She was picking up pizza too. I guess they're living down in the Carolinas now. She was out visiting for a month. She was out visiting for a month and she happened to walk in the auto, pick up her pizza while I was there getting ours. I was like, hi, Christine. She's like, oh my God.
What a
small world.
Yeah.
Small world.
Okay, so keep bringing us back for communication. We added some things to that, but I think there's still sort of some benchmarking that I think we should do that we've sort of talked about, which is just pulling together quickly, and we can add it to a future agenda to review web analytics, blah, 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 blah. Where are people clicking? What are they doing? Where are they going? Code Red signups. I think we were just going to look at what is the eligible population for Code Red and how many signups do we have? I know we looked at offline the Code Red, what do you call it? The guidelines or whatever.
Yeah.
I actually thought that they were very clear as written. There was a question that came up a couple of months ago. I don't know if y'all were, essentially, could we use Code Red to remind people about the master plan steering committee meeting or one of the meetings? Or was that an abuse of Code Red? But it turns out when you sign up for it on the website, you opt into the general notifications category. So there's just emergency notifications, and then there is a general. And so it doesn't seem like an abuse at all to say, like, if it is a town, and I think we have to be very, very specific, like the town has a thing and is doing a thing, it's totally appropriate. But I also think that's a good lever for getting people to sign up for Code Red.
Yeah.
Is that it's not just like an Amber Alert. It's if you want to be told about upcoming things.
So Bobby Gates has been trying to do more of that. So like when I authorized them to let people know about the visioning session, I said, just grab the people that opted in for the general notifications. I said, and then remind people that they can,
Yep.
you know, tell their friends they can do this. So
Yep.
he's done some of that. So with them,
Does he have any ideas? Have we asked him?
he has some ideas, but he speaks in a very frenetic way, and it takes me a while to really.
He reached out to me when I first got on again one to meet. We never did, but I don't know.
I think it'll be helpful to have somebody in my office that has, you know, some more social media background that can collaborate with him and do something.
Computers and websites. You know, I'm one thing that just popped into my head, Code Red signups. That sounds a little, I wonder if the nomenclature is correct to say Code Red,
Well,
when you just use
That's the name of the software. It's just the name of the software we use.
Okay.
Should we call it something else? It's not a bad point, because it does sound
Like,
get paddles. You know,
I don't know, because I've heard people complain and say, why are you using the emergency system? I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Just a thought.
I agree. But I also think that, yeah, that's an opportunity to basically like tell people there's two opt-ins there.
Yeah.
And so to your point, if somebody doesn't like that they're getting them, they can go back into the sign up and they can opt out of the non-emergency ones.
and what was the new, didn't we learn a new way to mail that was cheap too?
The mail drop. That's what we use for the warrant, right?
Right, should we leverage that? Should we do other mail drops or inserts, because we talked water bills, the tax bill or whatever, are there other?
We ran out of time on the one that we still wrote it and we put it together for the community conversations meeting. But I do think we were onto something as far as just like status of like a status thing. And I don't think we do it a lot, but like to do a mid-year like drop mailing that basically says like, here are the big things and here's where they are.
Statement thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
I think that's
I
a
wrote
great
that
idea.
down before I got here to say, you know, how do we make that a living document with
Yep.
our updates and communicating? And you don't try to overwhelm, you hit the big things, you know?
Yep.
These are the things that you'll be facing, whether it's water bills or 3A or, you know, update on even school stuff, which I was gonna ask too, like, do we or should we or could we leverage, they have a good communications reach, you know, I know it only hits once, it's a large population, like, should we leverage them as well? And they could leverage.
Well, we do, like Eric does a pretty good job of including relevant town things.
They use Connected, is that right?
Yeah, but even his just like superintendent report.
Yeah, I'm thinking though, they're connected,
Yeah.
connected thing, if that's what it's called, but. I mean, they've got everybody's emails and phone numbers and.
Yeah, there's a couple of different systems. Swampscott used to use Connected. I think we use something else now, but Connected, I think, is what you're still using in Hamilton.
I mean,
Okay.
that could be a good reach, and even if we leverage that, we got everybody on something like it. If we needed it, I don't know, just other ways to do it, and I like also Caroline's like, what kind of metrics can we kind of capture on this? Like, hey, most people communicate via the website, we get this many clicks, or most people, it's hard to say who reads the board, but I get a lot from that, you know, in front of the police station. You know, I mean, that thing,
That drive too fast.
but I think we have done a good job on that. I think we've come a long way on communication, but.
I think so too.
We're working on it. We're trying. I mean, it does take. I think we try and make things keep getting better.
But I think maintaining the one pager, we call it, or something like
Yeah.
that, could be a good goal.
Do we do Instagram?
Yeah, Bobby has. We have. Town has social media sites for Facebook, Instagram, and X, I believe. We haven't gone to some of the lesser. You know, I don't see us doing Discord or Snapchat or, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think that's a good triage.
And I look at things like that in Facebook too, to really get the info out, not to debate it. You know, it's almost like shut the comments off.
We've turned to doing that now. Some of the town departments have their own Facebook pages. No, most of them don't have anything other than Facebook. departments are all the age where we're comfortable with Facebook. We're not looking to get into TikTok or anything.
Yeah.
You see Tim like doing a little TikTok thing and signing her dance. That's kind of fun.
I saw this meme the other day. It was this cat. I do love a cat meme, I'm not gonna lie to you. And it was like a very fat cat sitting on a table, like kind of doing this. And it was like me trying to learn TikTok dances. And I was like, yes, that is true. I'm like, what are all these kids doing? Okay, let's I do want to do sort of the what do you call it? The rapid fire, like those were sort of big themes, but then we always have like a list of like really important things that we want to make sure that Joe is constantly sort of reporting on. And I think last year we had the GCTS overlay presentation, all that. You were sort of managing that process. And then, we needed new minutes. We had a whole sidewalk thing and the Brickens like there was a lot of stuff there. Because he has gone on to his reward.
Is B involved as well?
He's never really been involved in business as far as I know. What I'm concerned about is they're just gonna one day
All of a sudden.
They're not gonna accept the tractor.
Because we technically don't have a contract, right?
No,
So we should.
That was always the issue.
I've been trying to get him to sign a contract for 5 years.
Yeah, no. So
That's Peter.
we should be at least inquiring.
Tim was gonna, I'll take that over all this video.
So I'm gonna list some things that other people can't do, but I think the Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, the sort of three-prong thing that we've talked about, and I'm happy to say more about that. But I think so. We met with the Butters this week. We've met with John Whitten again. There's some good conversations happening, and ultimately, and again, I don't want to like get too into it because I think we should do it in a more public meeting. But what we're going to sort of go for is a sort of multi-party orchestration where we try to do the 200 units. We deed restrict in perpetuity the middle campus, so nothing can go there ever. And then we do an overlay on the upper campus, which would mean that, and the abutters would then, like we would never have to worry about development happening in the middle. We would then do, the stuff that we want to do with the 200 with all of this stuff that we've already talked about in terms of like infrastructure and all of that, and no additional development on the lower campus at all. And then an overlay district that allows the upper campus to be maintained in a sort of sparse fashion. But that will work.
Use type of thing.
Well, I mean, they say they're going to be there forever, right? Who knows? But the point of the overlay is to say, like, in that situation, worst case, we'll use air quotes, is the upper campus becomes single family housing. That's how it's currently zoned. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, the abutters prefer that because if you have nothing in the middle campus, the apartments on the lower campus and single families at the top, that doesn't really bother them. I think it does bother people in terms of like how much clear cutting would be involved, how much, what happens with the sewage and the water and all that. I think there's questions there.
And how big is, like, what is the mid? I'm picturing them going halfway up the hill, but
60 acres?
Yeah, somewhere around that. Yeah, the whole area with the frisbee golf thing is and the big open area.
Yeah.
So does that become accessible for?
It just becomes, like deed restricted green space forever.
But is it going to be like trail space where people could go enjoy, or it's just going to be they can't do anything but it's private property?
So for now, I think we would have to iron that out. For now, it would be theirs. I mean, it stays theirs. It's used how it is now. But I think what we want to avoid is if they were to sell that, somebody couldn't come in and say like, well, we're going to take these classrooms and turn them into offices. You can't do that. You're not allowed to build anything.
So with that, what you just described, and you're right, we shouldn't have the discussion because it wasn't on the agenda, but I'll stop, I promise. So that'd be the 200 down low. What do you think units would be up top if that would have happened, like single house?
Well, I mean, that's what the overlay district process is for. And originally, the thing had a number in mind for what would be appropriate on the upper campus if it came to pass. So,
where's the planning board on this?
Planning board hasn't chimed in. I invited Marnie to the meeting that we had with the abutters. She unfortunately had a personal commitment with her family. So she said no, but thanked me for the invitation and said that she'd plug back in when she returned. So, but the planning board has put the overlay district off to the side for now because they're, you know,
Because Gordon Conwell had sort of backed away from it.
Yeah, and I think, and this is again, and one of the things that we talked to John about today is like, we have to be kind of careful because we don't want to make it look like we're interfering in a contractual agreement between two parties when we are not one of those parties. And we get dangerously close to that when we start trying to make what looks like side deals, right, with one versus the other. So the idea is if the abutters, because I mean, we had a very candid conversation with the abutters, like they will stop this if they do not get the concessions that they want. And so we sort of were trying to figure out what that trigger point was, where they would stop it. And essentially it was, they want protections on the rest of the property. If we're going to let this happen, like, how do we protect the rest of the property? And I think our sort of counter to that was like, agreed. We don't think there's any way that Gordon Conwell is going to say like, yep, we'll never sell anything else here, but we think we can talk to them about the middle campus. So that's where we are trying to sort of balance what the developers could do, what the abutters want, keeps it in balance for us, because again, this affordability component is a big deal to us.
Oh, it's huge.
It's such a big deal. And so we're trying to sort of balance all of that, but then also keep the other abutters on that top part happy by saying, if we do an overlay, we can really, really manipulate what goes up here. But again, nothing's set in stone. This is just sort of, you know, as opposed to before where we were sort of like using the development agreements and the MOAs to sort of like say like signage and infrastructure and whatever, we now sort of have a much more orchestrated ask. But the ask needs to come from the developer. It can't come from the town.
Right, I'm interested. I mean, what voice do we have in here? I mean, it sounds like you two have been facilitating discussions, but do we have any influence in this, I guess? Or
you mean in the whole board?
in whatever the developer
Like, does the town
with the neighbors?
Yes and no. I mean, I think
the board's job is to determine what's important for the board and in the town's best interest, and try to get that through agreement with either the developer or Gordon Conwell. Probably not both at this point, but and then go in that direction. And it's just the most likelihood of that. If some group of neighbors don't agree with what the board determines is in the best interest of the town, they may choose to involve themselves. And there's nothing you can do about that.
and that's where we were trying to figure out the trigger point with them, which is in pursuit of these affordable units that we need to get into safe harbor to avoid. I mean, in order for us to get 50 affordable units elsewhere in Hamilton, we would have to build multiple projects in multiple places. And that's
Get to what? You said 40 Andrew's gonna do?
We got 40 from Andrew. We got
That gets
another 10 coming online at the.
well, we need 210
to get to 1%.
to get to safe harbor.
To get 10%.
10%. A lot of people in safe harbor, right? I mean, safe harbor is less than 10%, right?
No,
It's safe harbor just
Safe
shows
harbor
you
is safe harbor is temporary. You have to meet your
very few
annual.
people at 10%.
Yeah.
And they're in safe
Right.
harbor.
Well, yeah.
You just gotta show you chipping
You're
away.
gonna keep chipping
But you're
away.
right, it
and
does.
but
It's a big chip.
But it's if you can get the 210 units, you don't have to worry about safe harbor or anything else, as long as nothing else gets built. As long as you don't add to your overall housing, because it's 10% of your total housing.
But it's still gonna be way over
Yeah.
what we need, so we would probably be okay. Wow.
But that is what we want out of that. We want a good amount towards.
and
that.
I mean, and secondarily, but also, I mean, we want to preserve the integrity of the entire space and campus, not only for abutters, but I think for the bucolic nature of it and what it is. So we were just trying to figure out like what needs to happen if the town is saying we won't stop, we're not going to create undue stress to stop this because of this affordability component, but the residents will. What is that? And they were very clear, like they have the money, the will, the time, the energy to stop this if they don't have certain things met, which as we sort of described is like, we need to compromise though, because if you do that, it also stops these affordable units from happening. And that's where what's in your best interest is not in the best interest of the town of Hamilton. And we have to represent the town, not just the abutters. The abutters represent 0.05% of the overall population of the town. And so I support the abutters' rights to do whatever they want, but they need to do that knowing that they're doing it for themselves, not for the town. And so we kind of know where those trigger points are now. And I think that's what we're trying to work with.
So what is it that they want? They just.
Well, they want the entire 85 acres restricted with no further development at all. We then sort of talked through it with them and said, we don't think that's a realistic goal, but what about going back?
Basically, we'll ask, but if they say no, what's our response to them saying no to that? So.
And that's when we came up with if we use the upper, middle, lower campus construct and say, we restrict the entire middle campus. We also, it's already in the language, John was saying this, that if there's affordability in the lower campus housing, no other 40B can go there, which means somebody couldn't pull a permit for the upper campus to do an affordable project and usurp the system. So that was kind of what we were floating with them, was like, so if we restricted the middle campus, continued the overlay work with the planning board on the upper campus, would y'all not immediately lawyer up? And they were like, we think that. But again, this is the voice of just the group of abutters that showed up.
There were 6 people here and there's 76 people who live.
And we've heard that there are abutters that are a hard no, nothing's going there, we'll do whatever. And we can't manage around that.
Gordon Conwell would agree to the 3 prongs.
If their developer says that they'll back out if they don't put a deed restriction on it. And that's why we're saying this ask has to come from the developer.
They know they'll be there forever. Otherwise,
it's actually in the developer's best interest too, because the developer's buying, 40 and 50-year-old buildings and trying to market them as market rate apartment buildings. If Gordon Conwell in 3 or 4 or 5 years sells the middle campus and somebody comes in and does a plan that puts a brand new building, now you've devalued the 200 units that they just bought because now there's a brand new building right next to it.
No, it's good for the developer because they're just paying for their bottom third, but the school loses the ability if it's deed restricted to monetize anything else.
If they're being honest and their plan is to stay, that shouldn't bother them because they're not going anywhere.
Anything.
Deed restricted development on the.
Yeah, so they couldn't sell the rest of it basically unless another school came in.
So
right? That's what it's saying, except for that, unless you get the top.
Unless you do an overlay district.
Unless you do an overlay.
So, but they could sell, again, we'll get into it, but we shouldn't, but I think that's a goal. That's a big one, probably. As far as facilitating.
And so who's
interest
involved in meeting with all of these people? I feel very out of the loop of this. Who's meeting and doing all these negotiations?
We haven't negotiated anything.
Well, who's doing the meetings with?
We've met with John today.
Who's we?
Me, Carolyn.
So you two are managing all.
Well, everybody calls me because I'm the town manager. So they were calling and emailing me and want to know, could we get together with them? I said, well, I'll come with you if I can bring. I will offer to bring Caroline and Marnie, and then Marnie couldn't make it. So I will. It's not me. I'm not going to say this is what I think we need. We were there to listen to hear what the neighbors are concerned about, so we could bring it back to you, so we could bring it back to the attorneys. We weren't negotiating anything at this point. We're listening.
The meeting today with John was about the updates that he had made based on our feedback to the development agreement, and then we basically said, like, now hypothetically, if this happens, how do we need to change this development agreement? And that's when he was like, that's when you kind of get into having to have the developer and the school. Otherwise, you could get sued by someone for saying that you were interfering in a contractual agreement between 2 parties because they've already signed a PNS. And if we're trying to go around and orchestrate as a town, it opens us up. So
which is what we did though, right? We came up with the 3 prongs.
Well, but I mean, my point to John though was, look, we've been discussing the development agreements with Gordon Conwell for 2.5 years now. So, and they kept us in the conversation. They know this is going, and in fact, they invited me to talk to Alex. So it wasn't like we took it upon ourselves. They've known that the town has an interest in protecting its interest and the interest of the neighborhood. So we're doing what we've been saying we would do.
Right. It's just if the abutters at the end of this feel like we didn't protect them, actually works against them, and they go to court, they're going to drag us into court probably too.
And that's where I think we have to be very firm that there was even do we need to have more public opinion and more public this? And it's like, there's a difference between public opinion and abutter opinion. And we know the spectrum of abutter opinion. we're not unclear, that it goes from absolutely no to yes, if these things happen. And that's actually a pretty narrow window, because the things that they want are pretty wide. And so
Feels like the abutters are always winning in this town.
they are always winning in this
Every
town.
time we.
Yeah, and I said that I said, I admire that y'all are so invested, but I can't stop anybody who has the will, skill, and time to put, upward. I mean, they have literally, they're willing to spend millions on this. And so it's like, the town doesn't have that. But you need to recognize that you're doing it for you. And
so how do we at a point where because the board hasn't heard about this in a while. This is the first time I'm hearing a lot of this. So it's like, how do we?
It was Friday afternoon in this morning.
No, I'm not complaining. But like, do we need to have a meeting with the planning board and the select board on this and many other things? Or is there a point now, or are we still kind of stirring the pot and it's not ready to?
Planning board, I'll probably be happy to have a meeting with us on this at some point, later in August or something.
So I'll just tell you my frustration, at the meeting last week at the, representation of, Util, somebody came over to me and said that Scott Sundquist wants to talk to me. And I felt uncomfortable because I've been sort of locked out of this. And so I'm not sure, I don't feel that I should talk with Scott, but I also feel frustrated that he wants to talk to me. So I'm not sure what to do about that.
So I don't know how, I don't know the best way to communicate on the topics. If we can't talk about them when we're not in meetings, and when we are in meetings, we do talk about them. So I'm open to how do we, when, this is how you and Sean did it, right? You and Sean would do this bus and we would bring it back, similar to
And Bill,
or you and Bill, whoever. So you're working on yeah. But you're working on the cell tower, you'll report back. We've never done it where we had multiple people involved. So how do we want to, I just don't know how we want to set it up.
Well, I think, like I said, I feel frustrated. I have a lot of institutional knowledge. I feel very locked out of any meeting conversation, which isn't to say that I want to direct any negotiations, but I feel frustrated that I have been asked on more than one occasion by the president of Gordon Conwell, and I'm not involved. In fact, I had mentioned this to you in the past. So I'm wondering if there's a potential solution to have some participation.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, we literally met with the abutters on Friday, and we met with John today.
And you can do two members.
Yeah, and that's fine. You would like to be included in all the meetings going forward? Is that what I'm hearing?
I would like to be, and I understand I'm certainly not the primary negotiator, but I think it's important to have a lot of perspective on some of this. We all want this to happen. We want this to happen so that the town benefits from this. We don't want to alienate abutters, and we want to placate Gordon.
Oh, we didn't. I mean, there was no alienation.
No, I'm saying we don't want to. So it really requires a lot of just kind of sitting there and listening and really thinking about it, knowing what perhaps I know in the background. And it would be, I would feel that I would feel like I could contribute, especially Scott Sundquist has on several occasions invited me, and I cannot invite myself, right? That is beyond the scope of what I do as a member of the board. But I don't think that we necessarily just need one member of the board to go and discuss these things. I think it would be helpful to have another party, especially where Gordon Conwell has has an investment for some reason.
If you'd like to be involved, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
We just haven't been negotiating. It was We get,
Yeah, it sounds like listening.
we met with the abutters and then,
Is the president at these meetings?
no. It's literally been, they wanted to talk to Joe. And then Joe was like, I'm gonna invite Caroline, and then John took all of the feedback from the development agreement that we gave. And he came back and said, I have a draft, can we review it so that I can give it to you guys for the next select board meeting?
No, that, yeah.
And it's coming to the select board meeting, so we didn't do multiple members. But I mean, candidly, I'll have as little involvement with any of this as y'all want me to. I've spent 60 hours in the last, month.
It's a lot of work, a lot of effort. And I mean, I think it's pretty clear my work would be, and I do want this to be beneficial to the town. I want that 40B monkey off our backs. And anything, I mean, and that's not the only goal, but it's a huge goal, but also protecting the property. I like these ideas, and I would just like the opportunity to have my thoughts heard.
Sure. But outside of meetings is what you're saying.
Outside of our select board.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out. It's like,
Yeah,
we're not making any decisions. We were going to come to the select board in the next meeting and talk about these meetings and say, here are the ideas.
You've done nothing wrong from my.
No, but
I'm just, what's piquing my interest is why, like, and you're hearing this from the third party, right? Like, why would, like, if Scott's not even at the meetings, like, does he feel like from the school position, something's not working? Or?
No, and we've been told that later Scott would like to be involved. Scott has asked us to not meet with him directly until we've met with these other parties. He said, like, you guys go meet with them, you guys meet with them. And then we were going to set up a meeting for everybody. And so
it's perplexing that he
wants. But I honestly don't understand why you don't just say to him, like, I'm not the point person on this.
Well, call him and say, what is
it that you need?
Reach out, I would have by now to say, if someone asked for me.
I think it's just another, I don't know, maybe he feels that I'm listening to.
Because I would almost think that what you would want to do would go against what the school should do.
Yeah, like we've been
I'm the president
incredibly flexible with Gordon Conwell.
Not you per se, but even like from the town, we want a piece of the pie, and they want probably the biggest piece of the pie they can. They need it. That's why I'm not sure they'll be there forever.
I think Scott also knows that I was pretty upfront with him when we met. And
so you already have met once, so you could.
He invited me to lunch. Right.
So he definitely has an interest in you. Maybe it's a good thing to reach out and say, hey, it's been a bit, a lot's been going on, curious your perspective.
And it would be nice to be able to say, I'll be attending the meetings, the informal meetings, and I would love to talk to you more, Scott. And this way I will have more information so we can bounce things off.
So you're just inquiring on his inquiring, right? Or is there something you've heard today or along the way that you might want to differ?
No.
We'll just have more involvement along the way.
Yes.
To shape
I'm not against anything that's been said tonight. I would just like more involvement because I've been asked to be more involved by Scott. And I think that's a good sign. I think that's a good sign that he thinks that I could be helpful. And so that's why I'm just putting it up there.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Fine. Right. Yeah. All right, so
is there a specific goal we want to say in here?
I was wondering, because we talked a lot about Gordon Conwell and not about what the goal is. Facilitating Gordon Conwell Seminary sale.
I
think it's also like managing or coordinating the process between a butter, Gordon, developer, and the town.
And the community, right?
Yeah.
Leveraging, representing towns. Interests in agreements between Gordon Conwell and the butters.
I think it's a pretty exciting opportunity. It's a great opportunity.
So that's one rapid fire.
It was not so rapid.
Yeah. Okay.
A little more rapid.
Rick Ann's contract. I think let's not get caught at the end of the road without. The ability to do it. So look at some other options, maybe reach out to the family. Now's probably the time to do something like that.
It's a couple months later. It felt a little too soon a few weeks ago, but I think obviously it's sooner. Yeah. We have to make contact. So now we're a month and a half, 2 months since he passed. I think it's an appropriate time
Did we send something on behalf of the town or board?
Because they just had the remembrance thing, right?
Yeah.
I missed it, I was away,
I
but
don't think we did.
Maybe we
Maybe.
can do that now. Is it too late?
send something to the house.
Yeah, but
I think we should send
Yeah, I think
something to the house. I prefer plants to flowers because flowers die and plants grow, but that's just my
I do
thought.
too,
We can
actually.
send whatever we want.
I do love flowers because they're bright and
I know. but-
flowery.
And be such a big horse person, send something like a little bit horsey too, to, for her horses, I think she.
You're gonna have to advise on that. You're the SME. I don't,
Well, maybe in a, like
Some
a,
Texas hay.
Yeah.
my
or
extended
New
my,
Hampshire hay.
yeah.
You
Where did we end up on the process of digitization of records?
We haven't moved. We've got a contract in front of us to be able to expand the software that we bought with CARES money, but we obviously have slowed down only because we haven't been able to get staff to adopt it. It's a new extra thing that has been difficult to get people to, it needs a champion. I don't have the time to be its champion. And Corinne's the one that's most excited about it, but she clearly doesn't have the time to be the champion.
I know we talked about using high school interns to do.
So we did use a college intern to digitize some of the Board of Health and some of the building department records. There's been some work done to digitize that stuff, but as far as putting it in a place where it's accessible to the general public, we haven't been able to get there yet.
How much is left to do? I mean, is there hours or?
Yeah, I mean, to really get the most out of the Laserfish software, you'd want to do, all the records in treasury, all the records in assessing. We haven't even started those.
Are they all over at the homestead or are they here still?
Assessing and treasury left some stuff here. The building department and health department took all their records are down the street. There's some stuff in the basement.
Is there a way to break it up into like attackable bytes, like do years X to Y by this date?
Maybe the first step is a task force of some kind. Like we need to sit down with Corinne and you, and like, I think we need to understand the scope of the project. And then I think that's exactly right. Like, can we put together a plan? But I think maybe the first goal is just to have that conversation with Corinne and see, like, because I think we're like a single fire would take out.
Oh, yeah. I thought we've already done this though.
That's been the way it's always been.
Right. But I think
with
with all the moving and moving back and doing this, I think there's like increased risk of this happening. So, I mean, maybe the first milestone is like sitting down with Corinne and even like scoping how much is there? What's the time commitment? How many bodies would be needed for how long? And just kind of see how we could chip away from it. It's like OPEB.
I wonder if we could consider doing one department at a time instead of five.
But that'll be part of it.
Yeah.
I don't think we get involved. I think, sit with your department heads and come back with a plan.
And I recognize like nobody wants. I think the question would then be like, what are the resources necessary to make it, not how would they make this possible? Because it sounds like they're strapped. Nobody has time to do this. But if we said, until we can find one of these other full-time headcounts, we're going to pay interns $14 an hour to come here after school for
$15.25 now.
$15.25 to come, for 6 months after school in the fall and work through it, as long as we have a file structure and management system that they can put it into. They're so savvy. I mean, if it feels like they could, we could, or we go, did we talk about going to like the computer science teacher and being like, here's a semester project.
Yeah,
how do we do this?
Seriously.
Are there grants or did we get a grant?
I keep looking, there hadn't been a couple. There had been some grant money through grant that Baker used to run. It was community compact grants, mostly tech grants, but we've been, because of our involvement with the North Shore IT Collaborative, most of our tech grant money has gone there as part of the regional solutions and stuff. So I'm going to ask you guys to have them come in and make a presentation probably in September, October, because there's some good information that things that they've been doing for us that'll help us in the future. But
Patton master plan?
I mean, that master plan's done.
Done.
We were thinking about trying to take some ARPA money to start it, but it looks like we're gonna spend it on town hall instead.
Okay.
That other four-letter master plan, when we have an end. It's with the planning board, I know, I really don't.
It's with the planning board and they're trying to, they're making their own, they're making their own edits, so.
Just reorganize it.
Yeah, as long as it's that and versus changing the content that was
Yeah, no. I
brought
think
forth
that
through
was-
focus meetings and
Did Amy come up with the structure of it?
so we twisted it a little bit, but it was voted
Oh.
on, not a lot.
Yeah.
But I do think the 3A and all this other stuff is starting to influence how things are worded. And they're trying to position it so people, you know, all of a sudden they're getting big meetings with people who said they couldn't come to one of our meetings because it was a beautiful day and they were outside. I'm like, well, we had 3 of them, you know, and but I do think and I haven't been to one meeting there. And because Patrick tells me it's moving, so they're just tweaking and to
That's-
your
that's
point,
right.
as long as they're not, you know, changing the message.
Correct, that's what I understood is they were just.
But we gotta get that moving to go.
Yeah, well.
I know it's not
I mean,
unrealistic.
it's unfortunate, it's not unfortunate, it's a fact of life that in order to be certified as
Yeah.
a master plan by the state, it has to go to the planning board. And the planning board is doing their role now, so.
Everything goes to the planning board to die, I think.
Our planning board,
It
especially.
takes forever. Do you disagree?
Uh,
I'm not saying they're not good, but sometimes over engineering and late interest are on it.
well, that's why they put the kibosh on, any, functional edits and any structural edits. They're just reorganizing information so it flows, more
You've had it from.
fluidly. Yeah, well, I think they've had other things great too.
I know, so maybe we need a joint meeting because they've got a lot of things and we gotta move some.
They're getting a reputation, I'll say that.
They are.
I mean, like,
They're
I hear a lot about it, that our planning board,
They're just not completing.
they're being called a cabal at this point.
Honestly, I do. I mean, nothing against the people because they all have their good intentions, but sometimes you get a lot of people, smart people in the room and
Yeah, it's
it
just
just
like-
nothing gets done.
Thanks too much.
They're elected board.
What's on their plate
They're
right
allowed
now?
to
I
take
mean,
their
that,
process.
like, maybe we should have a joint meeting and start either helping prioritize or moving or understanding what's left, what's the final lift, and how do we kind of get the ball down the field?
Yeah, I think they were getting pretty close to it, I thought, for the master plan.
I think so too on that.
Yeah,
But then we want to get into the Gordon Conwell, which you had just had that line discussion, but it'd be interesting to have a good meeting with them and what's their priority. I mean, the
Yeah.
hall, the 3A stuff and
yeah.
the form-based code and all that, they're probably very interested in that, right? So
Did you end up talking to UTL
About,
that Friday about the contract?
we've talked, we wanted to get through Thursday night and then reconnect and see what we thought from
Okay.
how Thursday went, so.
Okay.
is there gonna be a readout or minutes or something we can look at on that meeting?
We're trying, so the meeting, they had a Zoom component and HW Cam was also there, so.
Okay, so
Both, I've reached out to both today, they're both making the effort to get those things ready to go in public, so.
There were some rough spots.
I got a lot, people were so frustrated.
Mm.
Everybody said like that they wanted to have a constructive conversation and that the bombing of the 3A folks that showed up, just like they felt, somebody was like, we felt attacked. Most of us didn't even know what they were talking about, like where the anger came from. We couldn't have a constructive conversation. People didn't want to stay because of the 90 minutes of conversation. And I was just like,
is the
we
link
can't-
out on the website or was you HW Cam, you're saying?
I talked to Bill today. Bill said he'd have it in a couple of days. He had to, and then Zoe, who's the principal project contact for us, is on vacation. So one of the other people in the office has to pull the Zoom together and get the link to us. So.
The sense was that people didn't understand a lot of what was going on and it was hard to, I think the two issues were conflated and people were confused and frustrated by that. So I thought it went better when they just focused on the form-based code.
Well, that's what they were trying to get to, and they kept getting interrupted.
yeah,
So,
I'm very frustrated by that, but
You know, it just became about 3A.
well, no, I mean,
Initially.
but it's the same
I can
group
see why.
with the same level of vitriol, with the same objections and the same tone of voice and it's not helpful. Like, we are aware that there is opposition to this, but it cannot stop every other conversation in its tracks. It's not helpful. And there isn't overwhelming support for 3A in any of our government entities right now. Nobody has overwhelming support at all. In fact, I would say most of us err on the side of overwhelming caution, if not in some ways opposition to 3A. But we're doing our due diligence, and we can't do our due diligence constructively if this keeps happening.
You know, I think that would be good to convey to people.
We have, though.
I think we have too, and
Very clearly.
and the planning board, I've watched some of their meetings, and I think Marty was really clear about it, opposing it basically, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a board too that could speak up to it.
Yeah. I think what
at these meetings, I mean,
what I heard, I was sort of a fly on the wall, and what I heard was that Zoe was who kind of minimizing the potential impact of 3A, and that riled people. It's only zoning. Well, you know, that's an unfair statement, right? And I think that irritated people when she said that, and then didn't allow any comments. Well, wait a minute. So I think we should be careful about how we present it. I agree that I've not heard anybody say they are for 3A, but I think the public face needs to convey that a little bit more. I think that.
But I think honestly, like, my perspective on it has been to stay almost completely neutral, and that's why I haven't said I want to see a plan that shows what compliance looks like. Because until we see a plan that shows what compliance looks like and shows what impact is, we don't know. We have no idea. And so if they won't allow us, we've paid money to get to a compliance plan so that we can vote against it. So that we can say, absolutely fucking no, we're not doing this. But we want to see what that plan looks like so that we can say to the state and we can say to everybody else, we did a compliance plan and we looked at it and it was horrifying. We're not doing it. But if we cannot even work with the people we paid with to show us what that plan looks like so that we can say no to it, so that we can show how devastating 750 units would be, to show how devastating 200 units would be within a half mile of the train station, we can't even get there because everyone keeps telling us that we're the biggest idiots of all time and we don't understand how government works and we need to, and I'm like, we're just trying to get the plan together so that we can show the state that, like, we did it. It's horrifying. It would never work here. We're voting it down. I've said that.
No.
On public, I've said it.
But that hasn't come through though. I think you're very rational.
On the one-page meeting, I think you got up and spoke to that.
I did. I was like, we're just trying to work together that you get to vote down.
And we said it in the library meetings too. I mean, people were jumping down my throat, and I tell people when they ask me, we're facilitating the process. You know, we've been giving 3A to look at and review. We're gonna miss the deadline. We're not gonna jump right into this.
We haven't done anything.
So
I've been told by some of those folks that I'm trying to jam this down their throat. Yeah. I'm like, if I was trying to jam this down anybody's throat, why would I have intentionally set into position a process that was going to miss the deadline? I wasn't trying to jam anything down anybody's throat.
So I think one of the other frustrating things, just as somebody who was sitting at that meeting, is form-based code is one aspect, and then the 3A is another. I think the two issues became conflated, and people were saying, we don't want 3A. Why are we going to try to make it work? And so that the form-based code sort of got lost in the fallout from that. So that would be my suggestion going forward, is to not conflate the two. Because people.
How do we untangle them? Because you're absolutely right. I think they became the same issue. The schools moved out. It's almost like we were this smart 5 years ago. And this is part of a master plan, right? And it's not. But I mean, form-based we're going to need. We're going to have 14 acres and we need to look at it. But I think people view it as you hired a company, which is what they do, 3A stuff, right? And you know,
form-based code. I mean,
right, but
3A has only been the law for a couple of years. UTIL's been in business for 20.
Sure,
they do a lot of other planning stuff. They're very good companies.
Grab opportunities where they know the state's going to throw a lot of money, and they are right now. I would bet you a good percentage of their work is that right. And it should be
exactly right.
You know, I would be if I had a firm like that.
People have said to me they are this UTL is, and I'm only repeating what I heard, I'm not giving an opinion, but UTL helps communities comply with 3A.
But here's the
They're
thing
even
that kills me though, is that even if they do that, if they put a plan in place that people like and want to vote for, they are autonomous grown people who can vote in favor of a 3A plan. The assumption that everybody hates 3A and everybody wants to vote against it is incorrect. And that's what I hate about this group that shows up. There might be people who see a compliant plan and like it and say, I'm okay with this. I want us to do this. That they're allowed to do that. So to say this company,
the noisy group is always.
but I'm like to say like this company has been hired to make sure that you comply. Yeah, they're going to show us the best compliance plan they possibly can.
No, but
and if you like it,
they should have been. I mean, I would have loved to have just hired them to do form-based code. We're going to be given a white piece of paper to tell us what to do.
but what's interesting is like form-based code is an important part of the 3A compliance plan because it helps you restrict it down to something that's more manageable.
That's debatable, but it could be. You're right.
And it's
talking about water, septic, all of that stuff, heights. Some people say, yeah, once you give away your right though to an area, you know, anything can happen. Right? It's already changed 4 times since then. And I'm for this. I want to do this, but I think it's been positioned and branded as one thing. And I'm sure if I was at that meeting, the first hour was only 3A stuff and people yelling and screaming because they're seeing red. They're seeing red instead of a green grass that could be something inviting downtown.
But to say that we're not allowed to make any positive progress towards 3A assumes that the answer is always no. And that's what's frustrating for me is that there are people that came because they support 3A. They support Maura Healey. They want to see what the plan is. They want to have a conversation about it. You have to allow those conversations to happen. You have to understand that there will be 2 sides and we're allowed to have positive conversations about 3A if people want to have those conversations.
And that's what we're trying to do.
And that's what we're trying to do is say, and for these people that keep showing up and saying, you're forcing this down people's throat. I'm like, no, because at the end of the day, everybody gets to vote. They get to show up and say, we saw the plan is terrible, we're not voting for it. Or they vote for it and say, we actually did like it. With a form-based code village of 300 units right here, it looked nice. And I think that would be fine.
We're on the same page, but to me, it's branding. And it's more like, we're going to figure out a mixed use plan for a downtown area. I'm not going to call it 3. I'm not going to call it a project. I'm not going to call it single houses. I'm going to say, but here's the blend.
But the branding unfortunately wasn't done by us because I started this conversation with the board and the FinCom and the planning board in January when we asked as part of the budget, we want to ask for money to be able to do this. And everybody agreed. And I said, look, by doing this, we will miss the deadline, but I think it's more important to take a good hard look and see what it looks like and see if it could work here or not and make that determination. And everybody agreed.
Right.
But the first real big public thing was the people that were opposing it. And look, I blame a lot of this on the Attorney General. If the Attorney General hadn't sued Milton and made that a big thing, UTIL has helped some towns adopt 3A compliant zoning because those towns wanted to.
Right.
And it's not like they were there pulling the strings,
right.
The puppet master. They went in and did what those towns asked them to do.
For them to
Most of the communities that have taken up 3A votes, the vast majority of them have voted yes. There's only a handful of communities that have voted no on 3A so far. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong.
No,
it's just a fact. It's just a fact. There's only about 6 or 8 that have voted no. So it's gone up since then. But it was only.
But I guess, and my point is, whether we vote yes or no is to me immaterial to the conversation of putting together the information and putting together the plan and allowing the public. You know, the problem with Milton is that the select board had unilateral decision-making power to make the decision without the town. And then the citizens petition put it on the ballot.
So what happened in Milton actually was that the town meeting voted in favor of it. The
select board had the power to do zoning in Milton.
The select board, zoning still has to get done through a town meeting.
But they approved it. And then the citizens petition reversed it.
So Milton has a citizens initiative petition in their bylaws that allows anything that is done at town meeting to be undone by a citizen's ballot. So, but the process for passing zoning is still the same. Milton is a town. They have a town meeting. Only town meeting can adopt zoning. All right. So the select board, just like a town can either through the select board or the planning board, bring a zoning article to town meeting. The select board brought a zoning article through. We used UTIL to develop a compliant 3A district, brought it to town meeting, and it passed, like by a large margin. The people in the representative town meeting that had been educated on it approved it. The people who were abutting the neighborhood that was going to get the bulk of the 3A development started an initiative petition to override it, and that's what happened. And then they got sued by the Attorney General. That wouldn't happen here because you don't have a citizens initiative petition under your bylaw. So it will live or die at town meeting, and that'll be the end of it.
Oh, really? They can't just come, the state can't come sue?
Well, the state may still, the state may, but I mean,
Why they let us vote anyway?
as far as on our end, as far as on
I
our
think
end,
they don't position themselves.
But again,
they have big projects out there.
Yeah.
But I worry when we start saying that the only perspective we should allow the community to talk about is the perspective where we say no. The process, well, this is my problem. We say they're a pro 3A, and it's like, maybe they are, but we also have a very anti 3A group. And
we didn't hire them to do 3A, right? It got reshifted,
Right,
but we hired them to say, we have open land and we want to look at, what would be best suited there. And
that's what the warrant says, that we hired them to do the form-based code.
But the problem is that then when 3A came down the pike and everybody was saying, well, what's this going to look like? And how is this going to be affected what happens if 3A passes and we have Winthrop? What's that going to look like? And we were like, well, we have to look at it then, because you're right. If all of a sudden you put 700 units.
I just fear we're going to get through this process and we're not going to have any real constructive feedback by the community, and it's just going to be written by this company.
Yeah.
Do they have any preliminary survey stuff? They've had a survey out there for a while.
I don't know what.
I'm just curious because that meeting doesn't sound, I wasn't there, like it was. And I think everyone that they've come to with ours, couldn't say anything. Between that and even just a combination of the school.
Yeah, I just do wish that they were. Got a lot of calm, listening people when they were talking about form-based code. I think they focused a little bit on big projects, but I do think there's some value in working on the form-based code. I honestly don't see how the 3A fits in with that.
It's not fits. If you're going to have a 3A compliant zone, the best. In our opinion, it was in part of the RFP. In our opinion, in Emil's opinion, the best way to manage a 3A compliant zone is through form-based code. So you can control what it looks like and feels like. And that was the push that I was getting from the planning board.
Right? Because we don't know if state is going to allow that.
No, I don't think that they'll have a problem if the zoning that you adopt is
if every community comes back and says,
but also like this is where I think we do have to remember
need a certain number of houses.
That it in essence, and I completely understand what you're saying earlier, it is just the zoning in that sense. Everything else still applies. Our bylaws still apply, our regulations still apply, everything applies. So if we pass, stormwater septic. So if we have form-based code, it still applies to the zoning for 3A. The only thing we're changing
They would have to sell it.
Is by right multifamily.
If they ever take it by domain or something.
It'd be really hard.
I think you'd have.
Would the town have to vote to sell that?
So
you have to sell.
The town would have to vote to sell it, and I wouldn't envision an easy path to sell that parcel. As I've said to people who ask me the question and let me answer them, if we get and that's a huge if we were to get the 14 acres at the Winthrop site back, I wouldn't recommend to the select board to put the whole thing up for sale anyway. I'd say let's carve out 6 and create a buffer with the rest.
Maybe that's where your goal ends up. So I think we've got to go through a process. What can we do as a board and all of our committees in town to help facilitate the process so people are more open-minded and we can have discussions so we can vote something and make an informed decision versus speculating on what the news says.
That was the idea, was to try to get it.
So how do we help? That is what we're on. That's the path we're on. How do we help smooth it? Is there another session coming up? Maybe
September?
The next one's supposed to be September. I'm supposed to reconnect with them when Zoe's back and I'm back, and to kind of take the temperature of, do they feel that they got enough information so far between the survey and the visioning session and what they're getting out of the advisory committee. I had a positive report out from Emil and Jonathan Poor, who had They had done an advisory committee meeting with the advisory committee, and some of the members who are very anti-3A had really dominated that session with Zoe. And so Jonathan and Emil volunteered to hold an interim one without Util there to try to get some of the answers that Zoe and Util were looking for. And Emil says that meeting went better.
So maybe that's
So,
a solution.
So they'll start to get some information back. So I gotta check with them and find out if they feel like they're starting to get the information they need to start to put together a plan. That was the other thing that got me with the meetings the other night, Rosie. Everybody's like, well, show us what your plan is. Nobody will ever, whenever you show up as a planner, say, this is your plan, people go, you did that without any input. But then when we show up and we ask for your input, well, show me what it looks like. I can't show you what it looks like till you tell me what you want.
Well,
We're stuck in a little dirty little loop.
What does 15?
But I mean, under what? 15 units per acre in Euclidean design, which we currently have, or 15 units under form-based code, which is what we're trying to get. If we're trying to get form-based code, then you need to tell us what it is you like. What are the type of roof lines you like? What is the height? What's the massing? What are the setbacks? If you can answer those questions, you create the form-based code, and then I can show you what 15 units per acre looks like in that form-based code. But through a Euclidean design approach, it's way different. And the problem is it only deals with floor area ratio and massing and building heights, but you have no control over what it looks like.
Well, I think, did the state have an idea when they gave us the number?
No.
The state pulled the number out of their hat.
Right, so there had to be a formula there for the
Yeah,
15
it was
per
a-
acre on average.
They were trying to get a percentage of growth in every community, and they were going right after communities like ours that haven't grown, because they're holding it out and saying, look, Beverly's grown, Salem's grown, all these communities have added.
Traffic and the
Well,
density in Beverly.
I
You can't even
hear
get
you,
through the
but
town.
I hear you, but their pushback will be they're now dealing with a disproportionate amount of the housing needs of the region because smaller towns won't do any of it. And their pushback would be like, it'd be great if you smaller towns could share some of the burden here. And I'm not saying that they're right or wrong. I'm just saying that that's the other side of the argument.
But that's where
That's just the other side.
formulaic approach versus, it feels like it was one shoe fits all. Like, if you're talking percentage growth.
And that's what we told Secretary Keneally. And again, I love that everybody keeps saying that this is Maura Healey's idea. The law passed under Baker.
It was Baker.
It was Baker.
It's a very different version. It was,
But
you could opt out and lose a few grants.
Right, but Keneally was Secretary of Housing and Economic Development when they started to put together those regulations. The Healey administration was only in power for a few months when they got adopted. So you know that the bulk of that was written by the previous administration.
The regs.
She brought it over the line, I think.
The
That's all.
regs just came out last year.
Law just got passed. It said last year was 23. The law got passed in 20. Most of the work had been done in the 2 years before that.
But the regs didn't come out until 23.
Again, I think the problem, I mean, there's very spirited debate. Obviously, we've all been part of it. It's a good thing, but I think
It hasn't been a debate though in these meetings.
right, it's just been, and this is my thing, it's like, what's so curious is that nobody in all of this has ever asked me what I think of 3A. No one. And I go on Facebook where people are talking about how I am like the development queen. I hate this town. I'm going to put 3A everywhere. And I'm like, funny, you've never fucking asked me what I thought about 3A. And I think you're dead wrong. But I've always said the process is what we're here to facilitate. The process, to go through the process, see what we think. And we have to remember that there are people, I don't know if y'all remember the poll a couple years ago where on Facebook where everyone was like, if you could have one thing downtown, what would you be? And we had like 450 responses for a Trader Joe's. Now, the reality of that is that would put 30% of Hamilton into the vapors if they thought we were putting a Trader Joe's downtown. There are tons of people that would love a Trader Joe's. And that's my point, is that there are varying opinions about the future of our town. Some people really do want growth, commerce, infrastructure, all these things. And some people don't. It's not my job to tell the town unilaterally what they will or won't like. It's my job to show them what it would look like if we did it and let them vote on it. I can have my opinion and I have my vote. That's the beauty of being a voter. I can vote, but I really, really, really do not appreciate this like unbelievably negative onslaught of people who are not allowing the process to go forward.
And it's the same.
It's the same people. And I get it. Y'all may vote against it unilaterally. But when I asked that room of people, you were there, and I said, raise your hand if you were here because you unequivocally oppose 3A. Less than 15% of the hands in the room went up, which means that the other 85% were there to understand and make a decision. It wasn't 100% of hands. It was 15%.
Was this the last meeting?
No, this was the community conversation.
Yeah, but that was a nasty meeting.
It was a nasty meeting. But 15% of the people were there to say absolutely not. Everybody else was just there to listen and understand the process.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand.
So we just gotta make that more of a safe zone for people to go in and be able to stand up and ask questions and voice opinions without fear of being.
Yeah. Jill, what did, I did hear that somebody contacted me and actually said that the meeting with Emma and Jonathan went well, that they were very enthusiastic. Did they specifically talk about form-based goals?
I don't know. I've already had so many people tell me that this is my plan, this is my that. I'm like, I am out of it. I'm staying out of it. I don't want to create the impression that I'm trying to drive the bus or steer the ship or anything like that. Yeah. My job as your town manager is to put a process in front of you that can help the town get to it. I've tried and I'm failing. Quite frankly, I'm failing because a small group of people keep shouting us down that doesn't even let us start the process. But I'm trying.
Yeah, I think one thing that would be helpful is not to throw out there that it's only a zoning change. Nobody is saying you don't have to build. I think that's kind of a disingenuous statement. And I don't think we in our conversations, like people went bananas when Zoe said that. You know, it was kind of a Pollyanna-ish.
But I think that, I would push back on the other side of that, which is that it is, I think what we've been trying to say is like, it is factually just a change to zoning. That is literally all it is. It is taking something from whatever it is now, single family housing, multifamily special permit, to by right multifamily. That is all it is. Now, what has upset me though is then like that gentleman who showed up to say, well, it's this, and then it's deserted Section 8 housing, and it's minorities in your schools, and I'm like,
get up and say that?
With the community. We talked about Danvers and the whole thing, and I was like, I am happy to accept that there can be impacts to zoning. That is the point of zoning, right? There are impacts to it. But someone has to buy the land, want the land, develop the land, sell the units. There is a process that happens afterwards. Now, we can't always control what happens after that. But the fact that people were saying that we are ceding the land to the government is a blatant lie.
Well, we don't have control over it, and
we don't have control over it now.
But you and I live within a half mile.
We have a zoning rule, but if we give carte blanche as of right zoning, that's worrisome to a lot of people.
But it's still just zoning. Like you and I live within a half mile of the train station. We'd have to sell our house if they pass an overlay that says this is by right multifamily, and no one sells their house and there's no property, nothing happens.
Right. But if people do start to sell their houses, then that's the slippery slope. So it could go either way.
But it is really, even in the best circumstances. Mm-hmm. I'll take an example from the city I grew up in Chelsea. So Chelsea, one of the first things I ever did in government was I was on the urban renewal zone in the economic development subcommittee for the city of Chelsea in the late 1990s. The city manager at the time was Jay Ash. He was working on trying to redevelop the urban renewal zone. 30 years later, it's finally done, but he was working 20 years later. He was working to try to do something. And one of the people he had in to talk about trying to revitalize the city of Chelsea in the renewal zone was New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft. Kraft was looking to build a stadium for the soccer team. And he said, look, I've got this whole area down here that we can do what we want with the zoning if it brings in jobs and things like that. And Kraft looked and said, well, that's a great plan. Why don't you go out and acquire all the properties that I need for me, and then call me back, and then we can do something. Because it's way too hard to buy multiple different lots to put together a large enough piece, and it's way too expensive. And the minute I set a price with you to buy your house, well, now you know that was her price, so now you want a little bit more, and go on and on and on. So even big developers won't get in and do the deal unless they know that they can control a large enough site to actually make money off it.
That's why the school site is so precious.
And that's why I say it's more important that we own it, because we can control who buys it, as opposed to, you know, we meaning the town meeting in the town of Hamilton. It's better that the town of Hamilton owns the 14-acre site that's available than some private interest that just wants to get their dollar and get out.
Right, like the Hansberry property could do something that's big enough.
Well, I was looking at like the house right across the street from Honeycomb, the one on the market. And I was like, this is an interesting, like, intellectual exercise, right? We're talking about how like developers are just chomping at the bit to come in here and build multifamily. I was like, okay, so this is a house on like a reasonably deep lot. It's a private home. It's for sale. A developer can buy this house right now in the downtown district. And they can either keep it or they could raise it and they could put a building here. They could do a special permit for multifamily housing because that's.
Yep, and there's no limit.
But there's no interest. The house sits on the market. The price gets lowered. It sits on the market lower. It finally sells to another family who's going there. And I'm like, I'm not saying that's the way things will go, but that's why I don't appreciate the Chicken Little approach either. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what the future is. And so this like extreme of like, we do this and then the government takes our land and next thing you know, there's Section 8 and, you know, poverty everywhere and broken windows. And I'm like, whoa, that's a stretch. And I agree with you that it can't be as simple as it's just a zoning, but I will concede that line when this line is conceded. That the second we do this, we cede it to the government and don't tread on me flags and I'm like, y'all, everyone take a deep breath and let's go through the process and let's look at what it looks like. And if we as a community say that is the worst idea we've ever had, let's vote it down and look at the state and say, we're not doing it and take our grant money.
How can you say that in a way that people will hear because clearly they're not hearing?
Well, we could say, if you guys want to go through an open and constructive process, we're going to put it on the warrant for special town meeting in September. We'll just vote on it since no one wants to.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Put 3A on there.
I will say this. As your town manager, I advise against it.
No, that's a joke. But how do you influence people? If you don't want to be part of the, you know, investigate the due diligence.
You know, you're explaining it much differently than you do in our meetings. You're explaining it much more. I'm just giving you a compliment here. You're explaining it in a much more compassionate way.
Well, I think part of it is that like when we started explaining it the last time, that group was very clear that any progress towards a plan is unacceptable to them.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
And I'm like, well, then
we're ignorant.
We're ignorant.
Homework. I'm like,
oh my God. I mean, it was the most disgusting display of uncivil behavior. And we were incredibly civil, but I was not patient with that group. Like, I have said this anybody who's asked, I've said, this is a process. You get to vote it down at the end if you want. You know, I don't have a dog in this fight. But if you're saying that the only acceptable answer is to not go through a process, to not say anything good about 3A, to not say anything good about multifamily housing, then I don't know how to have you listen or have a constructive conversation because you don't want to. You've decided that the only acceptable answer is, I mean, because now it's the soundbite, is to tell the state to go pound sand. Yeah. And we're not going to do that.
And I'm a fan of the idea that we have a process that we try to comply. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I can defend that to the state all day long. You passed a law and told us that we needed to consider implementing zoning at the local level. We considered it. Our town decided it wasn't for us. So do with it what you will, state. That I can defend that. But just because a smaller group in a very angry way insists that we just say no up front, that's not something I can defend. Because the town as a whole hasn't had a chance to actually weigh in on it yet. Yeah. And the town as a whole right now hasn't been given anything to really consider. There's no way of knowing. We can't ask them to decide on something that they don't know what it looks like.
Right. I think it might help if we don't say it's only zoning, because that's a threatening statement.
I can.
And we can give that feedback to you.
Like not even discuss it's only zoning. Yeah. Let's do a hypothetical of what 3A might look like. Maybe we won't, but let's do it. Maybe if we are more careful about how we present it.
Makes sense. I can.
I don't think
I can
that will
fully
change
support that
the
approach.
vocal group that has come
Is
before
there
us.
any one or two people within that vocal group that an advanced discussion would help?
I don't know a lot of them.
And I don't,
No, I'm just.
the ones that I've talked to, I don't think that,
Yeah.
they've made up their minds, and that's fine. People are allowed to make up their minds when they feel they've had enough information, and that group feels they have enough information, they've made up their minds.
And it's made up
I'm not
of so
trying to
many,
change anybody's mind.
it's made up of so many different reasons too. I mean, like, again, there was a lot of language in that meeting that I found. I don't believe in a God, but if there is one, like, he's not, like, the whole, like, I worked hard and deserve to live here. And, you know, I'm not just going to open up this town. It's like, first of all, you're talking about it as if multifamily and affordable are the same thing. They're not. We're talking about market rate housing.
That's another issue that could be clarified, that we're not taught, this is not.
There isn't even an affordable component. There isn't even an affordable component, even in the regulations. The state and the regulations need to say you should have a certain, they don't even want us to have it in the zoning that a percentage has to be affordable.
So maybe.
I'm like, guys, you're making us build new units and not letting us build affordable. You're killing me.
We're not talking about housing. We're talking about nice market rate, apartments or units. So maybe if we try to help them, if we try to help break down the walls with language that is not triggering, and you know, it's sort of knowing how to talk to an angry group that doesn't make them even more angry. And I think that darling little person, like I said, what's her name, the UTL leader?
Zoe?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to get up and punch her too, honestly. When she said it's only zoning, nobody says you have to build. That's unfair. So I think if we avoid, we already said
I think that if she had just, she got jeered down a little bit when she said that.
Well,
I think it, but
silent
okay,
with jeering
all right,
too.
but if I can finish,
Yes, please.
I think if people had just let her finish the statement I think she was going to say, because she said in the meeting to us, technically it's only zoning, but we understand that there are implications to it, and nobody really wants to approve zoning without understanding the implications. She didn't really get a chance to. The minute the words only zoning came out of her mouth, people were like, oh, come on, stop that. You're lying. That's not true. And she didn't get to finish that thought.
And some people might just believe that, and that's unfair to people who really understand it at a much deeper level. And I think that's scary to some people. I mean, I don't know. I'm just sort of thinking about it, having watched the whole thing.
She, at one point, she also said that under 3A and under the regulations, not all the zoning needs to be within the half mile of the commuter station. And in fact, only X%. And then I literally had a member of the planning board say, that's not true. And I'm like, no, it is absolutely true. That is factually accurate.
Right? It's like the moving target all the time. So people are saying we don't trust the state because they keep changing the regulations. Where the hell did that come from, right? Because they realize how unrealistic their demands were that we put 731 units within a half mile. So people are saying, how can we trust the state not to come in and bulldoze us into doing what they want us to do if we put the zoning in place? I'm just kind of, trying to understand it from angry people perspective.
But again, our job is not to change the minds of people who've decided that they're against it.
Well, our job is to maybe encourage more open-mindedness.
Right. Well, we're not the ones not encouraging open-mindedness, though.
Well, I think
I don't want to spend 80% of my time.
Schools are going through it.
Yeah, but I don't want to spend 80% of my time responding to 20% of the vocal angry population. The other 80% want to have these conversations. And I don't want to spend my time trying to pet the feathers of a group of people who's shown up to do specifically that, to derail a meeting and derail a conversation for another group. So when Tosh got up and said, in the future, you shouldn't use that kind of, triggering language. In the future, you shouldn't derail a constructive conversation by yelling and calling government officials names, telling us we're stupid, telling them we're the most ignorant person you've ever met, telling us to sit down, telling Dana Illaara to shut up, telling Dana Illaara they don't care what she has to say, calling her a little girl. This isn't on us. This is on you. That behavior is unacceptable.
This is true, except it's a reality. So how can we tone it down? I mean, good. I'm glad, because we need to find a way to get through.
The good news though, is that, and I'll say this, and I mean, they need to know this.
In the budget for time.
They have created such a swirl that it is having the opposite impact of what they think. People now see anti-3A signs and they're like, that's that crazy group. I'm going to vote for 3A because I see these signs in the yards of people who have behaved a certain way. And I know that it means that I'm for 3A. And they need to be aware of that. That is now the narrative, that it's like the same group of people that are misbehaving, and it's having the opposite effect. People are like, the 3A signs in these people's yard means crazy people. We're not voting that way. And I think they need to be very cautious about that, because
the thing we can do though is pick up on the fact that if we feel that people are not engaging with the public sessions, we need to find a way to drive people to fill out the survey online and participate and get their voices heard in other ways to help get us through a process that we all agree we need to follow some kind of a process here so we can get to whatever the outcome is going to be.
How have we communicated the survey?
I haven't seen it.
I tried to do it today at the office and they wouldn't submit. It could have been my office firewall, but I got to the very end and have you heard feedback like that?
No.
It just went to
surveys. It's on the website that was developed.
I went through it. I got to it fine. I went through it. I filled.
But are they like pushing it out, like sending it to folks?
We had Bobby pushing it out on social media. I can have him redo that, and we can have
maybe we got to give him a deadline. Well, costing that, because I do think getting some of that information, if what Caroline just said is more factual and we show evidence, more people want to learn more and don't. So please respect others, rights to learn more in the process and let us continue this process without, disruption. You can voice your opinion, but then we just kind of help, with what gets said. It's hard. People get triggered, and I don't think it matters what came out of someone's voice when someone's already seeing red because they've read everything else and they hate the idea of it. Someone could have said, Christmas tree, and they would have still. They won't allow Christmas trees in these places.
We're way afield of goals right now.
So, and it's also 9 o'clock, and
how do we do?
So I think there's some homework that we just need to do.
Yeah.
I think we hit the Gordon Conwell, the 3A, the Brickens, the digitization, and we just, if anybody over the next week before the next meeting, maybe we'll just put a line item, has any additional one-off things that need to be brought up as priorities for Joe, we should just make sure that we get them on here. I know if Bill Olson was here, he would ask about sidewalks. I think we now know where the fate of sidewalks lies, and it's in town hall.
For this coming fiscal year right now.
And then I think at some point, although I don't have the energy for it tonight, we should just discuss what role we should play in the ongoing conversation about the schools. But somebody recently gave the feedback that they thought that maybe we should have less involvement and allow that conversation to live with the schools.
So
I don't know the value of that, but
if I could reply to that, I think to the extent that as town manager, I have to work with the superintendent stuff, I will probably necessarily be a scribe of it. I am on the feasibility study, feasibility committee, the school feasibility committee anyway.
Are they still up?
There's a meeting next week. It starts at 6:30, right before I have to be at your meeting at 7 o'clock. So I probably won't be at that meeting. But
on the 8th, that's their first meeting back.
My observation is that until or unless a group that wants a consolidated school organizes and starts to put together a campaign committee for that school, it will fail. It really doesn't matter what Eric and Tracy and I or you do. School building questions get decided just the same way people run for office. You get a committee, you reach out to voters, you find the voters who support it, and you make sure they show up on election day. If nobody does that, the question will fail.
Mm-hmm.
I am confident of that.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the mission? The school, I thought the feasibility group already completed their task. They made a recommendation.
Well, it's a building committee. So it's a school building committee. They'll follow it as long as there's a process going on. So they'll follow it through design and presentation to the public next spring. So
Because I think what the school needs to get out in front of this, because it will fail, and talk about the condition of all the schools, because the survey said most people think it's fairly good, and educate people on stuff, which might help their momentum. You know, but that's what they have this whole month off. They're back at it in August, right? That makes sense. So
Again, if a campaign committee emerges in Hamilton, Wenham, say yes to our schools committee, grows out organically out in the community, then it has a chance. Without it, it's dead on arrival as far as I'm concerned.
it's gonna, and yeah, so unless they're the same 80% who are just quiet, because I do have plenty of people come up to me, teachers and all, saying,
Oh, there's a lot of people.
everybody wants this,
Yeah.
they're just not.
But-
Yeah, I mean,
but
I've
it's-
heard the same thing.
But the issue is that
Who shows up?
any question like this, who shows up?
Well, even
Any
survey.
question like this there's always gonna be 25-30% that are against it. There's gonna be 25-30% who definitely want it, but they'll lay in the weeds and just say, I'm gonna vote for it when the time comes. But it's controlling the middle and getting the middle to vote one way or another. And there's an organized group that is telling people vote against the school.
Mhm.
There's nobody doing that telling them vote for the school.
Mhm.
So until you find somebody that campaigns for it, I don't see it happening.
When will we know the price of this?
The design phase
The
starts.
design phase
Schematic
starts,
design
the
starts then.
schematic design starts, and that's when you can start to put closer to real numbers on it. Because then you'll start to see what it looks like, how many floors they'll have, they'll have drawings, they'll have an idea of scale and cost of,
Yeah, I mean, I think we're looking at bonding 50 million in Hamilton.
yeah, about our share, yeah.
Mhm.
And that leaves them on the hook for about 32 million, something like that.
Yep. There's more support for it, interestingly enough, in Wenham, vocal support board in Wenham.
Because none of it's in Wenham.
Yeah, they didn't want it.
Well, but I also
They're
think
doing a survey
they're,
now on Iron Rail and stuff.
but they're also a
It's
far
about-
more fiscally
They've got a use.
motivated town. Wenham is, and that I think after all of the fallout, they were much better at talking about the fiscal responsibility of consolidating the schools, which turned that conversation differently. Whereas I think there's still this in Hamilton, this conversation about like, this isn't fiscally responsible. And it's just because folks haven't looked at what happens if we don't.
Well,
I don't know what's on, I don't know if more people are, disagree on the fiscalness or the mega school. Because
Well, but I think one is the same as the other, right? Which is if we bond $50 million to educate 250 kids, we have to bond another $50 million to educate the other 250, and then we have to bond another $50 million to educate the other.
Fiscally responsible one to do.
Yeah,
I'm saying
yeah.
that fiscally responsible don't want to do anything.
No, so I think what people are saying is that if you're truly being fiscally responsible, you recognize that,
But people don't recognize that.
right, that you have to consolidate
The school
because
needs to get out there and talk.
you're gonna bond at the once.